Hello there everyone, welcome to Cryptocorps. I am your storyteller and I am here to guide you tonight. I know many of you use these videos to drift off to sleep, so before we begin, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. I'm always curious, where are you watching from and what time is it in your part of the world? Now, find your cozy spot and relax. My name is Dr. Franklin Morse, and I need to record what's happening here before it's too late. I'm 45 years old, a nuclear physicist from Los Alamos, and I've made a terrible mistake coming to this place. It all started 3 months ago, when I arrived at this godforsaken research station in the Nevada desert. The station is built into a natural cave system about 50 miles from the Nevada test site. They told us the cave would shield us from radiation. They lied about a lot of things. There are 4 of us here. Me, Catherine, everyone calls her Kaita, young photographer who documents our findings. She's only 26, too young to be trapped in this nightmare. Then there's Jimmy Fletcher, an army security officer who watches our every move. He's supposed to protect us, but lately, I'm not sure who he's really protecting. And finally, Maria Santos, our local Shoshone guide who brings our supplies and knows these lands better than any of us. Our station isn't on any official maps. To the outside world, we're part of Project Blue Book, supposedly investigating UFO sightings near the atomic test facilities. That's the cover story. The truth is much worse. We're really here to document how radiation affects desert wildlife. The government wants to know if they can use these mutations for biological warfare. It's sick work, but I told myself it was for science, for protection against the Soviets. The last underground nuclear test, they called it Plowshare 7, created cracks in the desert floor that weren't supposed to be there. Since then, we've seen things that shouldn't exist. Scorpions the size of dinner plates, rabbits with no fur and red eyes, plants that glow blue when the sun goes down. Our lab is filled with cages of these poor creatures. We take notes, snap pictures, run tests. Kate documents everything with her cameras. The photos she's taken would make your skin crawl. We're completely cut off out here. Our radio only connects to the military base 200 miles away, and we only check in once a week. Supply drops come once a month from unmarked planes that land on a strip 10 miles from here. We're on our own, and that's exactly how they wanted it. Maria warned us the first week we arrived. Her grandmother told stories about a blood drinker that comes when the earth gets sick. I laughed it off then. We all did, except Maria. Just looked at me with those knowing eyes and said, "The old ones have seen this before. When men dig too deep and release what should stay buried." I should have listened to her. We all should have. Last night, our Geiger counters went crazy, then died completely. The backup generators flickered, and through the walls of the cave, we heard it for the first time, a scream unlike anything I've ever heard. Not animal, not human, something else. Kate said it sounded like the desert itself was in pain. Jimmy just checked his gun and locked the security doors. Maria lit some kind of herbs and started singing in a language none of us understood. Me, I just stood there frozen, as the lights flickered and died around us. Something is out there in the dark, something that shouldn't exist, and I think it knows we're here. We tried to pretend everything was normal the next morning. Jimmy fixed the backup generator, and Kate made coffee that tasted like dirt. But none of us mentioned the screams from the night before. Not at first. It was Maria who finally spoke up during breakfast. "Mr. Johnson's cattle are all dead," she said quietly, stirring her coffee. "I saw them when I was coming back from town yesterday, 15 miles from here. All empty inside." "Empty?" Kate asked, her hand shaking a little as she put down her mug. "No blood," Maria explained. "Clean cuts, like someone used a knife, but no person did this." Jimmy rolled his eyes. "Probably coyotes or mountain lions." Maria just shook her head. "Animals don't drain blood like that. They tear and eat." This was different. I felt a chill run down my spine despite the desert heat already building outside. "How many cattle?" I asked. 7, Maria answered, all in a perfect circle. That afternoon, Kate and I went to check our equipment. Half the Geiger counters were dead, and the ones that worked showed radiation levels rising and falling in patterns I couldn't explain. The radio was working again, but full of static, and it drained batteries 3 times faster than normal. "Something's wrong with the power," Kate said, changing the batteries in her camera for the 3rd time that day. "Everything's draining too fast." She showed me her photos from the past week. Most were normal pictures of our mutated test animals, the desert landscape, samples we'd collected, but 3 photos near the end made my blood run cold. They were blurry, taken at dusk. Something stood on 2 legs at the edge of our camp. It had a long, thin body, a head like a lizard, but it stood like a man. In each picture, it was slightly closer to the camera, though Kate swore she'd taken the photos in quick succession without moving. "I didn't even see it when I was taking these," she whispered. "It only showed up when I developed them." That night, we all heard the screams again, closer this time, high-pitched like metal scraping on metal, but somehow alive. Jimmy got a terrible nosebleed that wouldn't stop for an hour. Kate threw up. My head felt like it was splitting open. Only Maria seemed able to stand it. She sat cross-legged on the floor, burning herbs and whispering words I couldn't understand. The next morning, I checked our radiation readings from the night. The levels had spiked to dangerous heights, exactly when we heard the screams, then dropped to normal again. That wasn't possible with any radiation I knew. My grandmother called it the blood drinker. Maria told me later as we stood outside, watching the sun set over the desert. "It comes when the earth is sick. Your people have made the earth very sick with your bombs. You've seen this thing before?" I asked. She looked at me with sad eyes. "My people have many times. When miners poisoned the streams with mercury, when the Spanish brought sickness, when the government tested weapons in our sacred places, it always comes to feed on the sickness. And what happened to the people who saw it?" I didn't really want to know the answer. Maria looked out at the darkening desert. Some lived to tell the story. Most didn't. That night, Jimmy set up a perimeter of lights around the station. "Nothing's getting in here," he promised, checking his gun for the 100th time. But as the sun went down, every single light went out at once. Not burned out, not broken. It was like something had sucked the electricity right out of them, and from somewhere in the darkness, much closer than before, we heard that scream again. We were running out of time. 2 days passed without any screams. We almost started to believe it was gone. Almost. Kate spent those days in the lab, studying the animals we'd collected. "They're changing," she told me, pointing to a cage with 3 desert mice. "Not just from the radiation anymore. Something else is happening to them." She was right. The mice had been albino from radiation when we first caught them. Now their eyes were turning black, their teeth growing longer. They stopped eating the food we gave them and started biting each other instead. All our test animals were changing the same way, getting more aggressive, more hungry. "It's like they're turning into little versions of whatever's out there," Kate said, taking photos of everything. She kept her camera with her all the time now. Jimmy was getting jumpy. He started carrying his gun even inside the station. He put locks on all the doors, not just the outside ones, but rooms inside too. "Can't be too careful," he'd say, looking over his shoulder every few minutes. I caught him staring at Maria once, his hand on his gun. When I asked him what he was doing, he just shook his head. "Don't you think it's weird she knows so much about this thing? Maybe she's working with it." "That's crazy talk," I told him, but he just walked away, checking the locks again. I spent those 2 quiet days reviewing all our data. The radiation patterns matched the creature's appearances perfectly. It showed up when radiation levels were highest. The thing was drawn to it like a moth to flame, or maybe it was feeding on it. On the 3rd night, I was working late in the lab when I heard something moving inside the ventilation system. A scraping sound, like claws on metal. I froze, listening. Scrape, scrape, pause, scrape. It was moving through the vents, circling the room where I sat, testing, exploring. I reached slowly for the radio to call the others, but as soon as my fingers touched it, the power died. The whole room went black. In the darkness, I heard the vent cover fall to the floor with a clang. I ran, didn't look back, just ran for the door and slammed it behind me, yelling for the others. Kate was the first to reach me, then Maria. Jimmy came last, gun drawn. "It's in the vents," I gasped. "It's inside the station." We huddled in the main room, listening to the sounds above us, scraping, thumping, moving from room to room. "We need to leave," Kate whispered. "Right now." Jimmy shook his head. "No way. Station is secure. We stay here. It's inside the station." Kate hissed. "We follow protocol." Jimmy insisted, his eyes wild in the flashlight beam. "No one leaves. That's an order." I saw the way his hand shook on the gun. The fear coming off him was almost visible, like heat waves. Maria touched my arm. "The creature feeds on fear too," she whispered. not just radiation. It makes you afraid, then feeds on that fear. Is that what's happening to Jimmy? I asked quietly. She nodded to all of us, but him most of all. That night, Kate set up her camera in the main room, hoping to catch a clear image of the thing. Jimmy kept his gun pointed at the ceiling, following the scraping sounds. Maria burned more herbs, singing softly. I checked our radiation levels. They were climbing higher than ever, but in a pattern I'd never seen before, pulsing like a heartbeat. Just before midnight, the scraping stopped. Everything went quiet, too quiet. Then we heard it not from the vents, but outside the main door. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Jimmy aimed his gun at the door. "Don't move," he whispered. Nobody move. The scratching stopped. Then came a new sound that made my skin crawl. A voice, a human voice, calling from outside. "Help me," it called. "Please help me, I'm hurt." It sounded like a young man, a teenager maybe. "Don't open it," Maria warned. "That's not a person." Jimmy's finger tightened on the trigger. Kate's camera flashed, taking pictures of the door. "Please," the voice called again. "I can see your lights. I know you're in there. I'm bleeding." The voice sounded so real, so human. For a second, I almost believed it. Then the voice changed, deepened, twisted into something else. "Let me in," it growled, no longer pretending to be human. "Let me in." The door shook as something slammed against it from the outside. "It's learning," Maria whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "It's learning how we think, how we talk." The pounding stopped suddenly. We heard a sound like sniffing, then a low, hungry growl. "It smells us," Maria said. "It knows exactly where each of us is standing." We held our breath, waiting. The minutes stretched into an hour. Nothing happened. Finally, Kate whispered. Maybe it's the window behind her exploded inward in a shower of glass. She screamed, falling forward. For just a second, I saw it clearly in the moonlight. Tall, thin, standing on two legs. A head like a lizard with too many teeth. Eyes that glowed green in the dark. Then it was gone, vanishing into the shadows as Jimmy fired his gun wildly, hitting nothing. Kate was bleeding from cuts caused by the glass, but she was alive. As Jimmy helped her up, she clutched her camera. "I got it," she said, her voice shaking. "I finally got a clear picture." Maria looked at the broken window, then at me. "It's playing with us," she said, "testing our defenses." "Why doesn't it just attack?" I asked. "Because it's not just hunting," she replied. "It's enjoying our fear, feeding on it, making us weaker. And when it's done playing, I didn't really need to ask." Maria's face was grim in the flashlights. "Beam. Then the real feeding begins." We barricaded ourselves in the central lab after the window attack. Jimmy pushed heavy filing cabinets against all the doors and vents. Kate developed her photos in our small darkroom, her hands still shaking. From the cuts, Maria mixed some kind of paste from plants in her bag and spread it around the doorways. "It won't stop it," she explained, "but it might slow it down." When Kate came out with the developed photos, we all gathered around. The images made my stomach churn. The creature was clearer than I'd expected, tall and thin with scaly skin that seemed to glow slightly. Its head was shaped wrong, too long, with a mouth full of needle-like teeth. But worst of all were its eyes. They looked intelligent, aware, like it knew exactly what it was doing. "It's evolving," I said, comparing it to Kate's earlier blurry photos. "Getting bigger, changing shape. It's adapting to hunt us better," Maria said quietly. Jimmy snatched the photos, staring at them with wild eyes. "This isn't natural. This isn't right." His voice had a strange edge to it. "How do we know it's really out there? Maybe it's in here already. Maybe it's one of us." He looked straight at Maria when he said it. "Jimmy, that's crazy talk," Kate said gently. "We've all seen it, have we?" Jimmy's hand moved to his gun. "Maybe what we're seeing is what it wants us to see. Maybe it can look like people too." I stepped between him and Maria. "Put the gun down. Jimmy, the stress is getting to you." For a second, I thought he might shoot me. Then he lowered the gun slowly. "We need a plan," I said, trying to sound calmer than I felt. "Maria, you said your people have dealt with this thing before. How did they stop it?" Maria hesitated. "There is a ritual, a binding ceremony, but it requires ... sacrifice." "What kind of sacrifice?" Kate asked. "Blood freely given," Maria said. "A life force to bind the creature and send it back where it came from." We were all quiet for a moment. "That's insane," Jimmy finally said. "We're not doing some blood magic ritual. We need real solutions. Like what? I asked. We blow it up, he said simply. The nuclear battery for the backup generator. We can rig it to explode. That would kill us all, Kate pointed out. Better than letting that thing get us. Jimmy answered. We argued in circles for hours. As night fell again, the temperature in the lab dropped suddenly. Our breath came out in white clouds. It's coming, Maria whispered. She was right. The scratching started again, this time from all sides at once. Like the thing had somehow split itself into multiple bodies. The radio crackled to life on its own, playing static and broken words that almost made sense. It's trying to confuse us, Maria said. Don't listen to it. Jimmy aimed his gun at each new sound, sweat pouring down his face despite the cold. Kate kept taking pictures, documenting everything. I checked our radiation levels higher than ever, spiking wildly. Then Maria did something unexpected. She took a small knife from her pocket and cut her palm. What are you doing? I asked, alarmed. The binding ritual, she said. It's our only chance. Before we could stop her, she started drawing symbols on the floor with her own blood, singing words in her native language. The air in the room felt heavy, charged with electricity. The scratching stopped. The creature was listening. Maria's voice grew louder, more urgent. She placed her bleeding hand in the center of the symbol she'd drawn. For a moment, everything was still. Then, a high-pitched scream tore through the station, louder than ever before. Filled with rage, the lights exploded. Glass rained down on us. The temperature dropped so low I could see ice forming on the walls. Maria kept singing, her voice never faltering. The blood from her hands seemed to glow slightly in the darkness. Then something crashed through the ceiling, dropping down right in front of her. I couldn't see it clearly in the dark, but I felt its presence, cold, ancient, hungry. Maria stood to face it, still singing, her arms outstretched. The creature let out another scream, and this time, Maria screamed too. Not in fear, but as part of her ritual. Their voices mixed together in the darkness, human and inhuman, fighting for control. Then Maria's voice stopped suddenly. There was a wet, terrible sound, and something hit the floor. Maria, Kate called, her voice breaking. Maria, Jimmy fired his gun at where the creature had been, the muzzle flash briefly lighting up the room. In that split second of light, I saw Maria on the floor. Her body twisted unnaturally, her skin grey and dried out, like she'd been dead for weeks, not seconds. The creature was gone. It had moved impossibly fast. What happened to her? Kate whispered, moving toward Maria's body. Don't touch her, I warned, pulling Kate back. The ritual. I think the creature turned it against her somehow. It fed on her, instead of being bound by her. Jimmy kept firing into the darkness, screaming now, all his training forgotten. Jimmy, stop, I shouted. You'll hit us. He turned toward my voice, his eyes unfocused, wild. It's in here with us, he yelled. It's everywhere. Jimmy put the gun down, Kate said gently, stepping toward him. It happened so fast. Jimmy swung around, saw movement, and fired. Kate stumbled backward with a look of surprise on her face, then slowly looked down at the spreading red stain on her stomach. No, I lunged forward, catching her as she fell. No, no, no. Jimmy dropped the gun, staring at his hands in horror. I thought, I saw ... It wasn't her. It looked like ... Kate coughed, blood on her lips. It's playing with us, she whispered, making us turn on each other. I pressed my hands against her wound, trying to stop the bleeding. You're going to be okay, I said, not believing it myself. My camera, she said weakly, pointing to where she'd dropped it. Keep taking pictures. People need to know. In the corner, Jimmy was rocking back and forth, muttering to himself. The creature had broken his mind without even touching him, and somewhere in the darkness, I could hear it moving, waiting, watching us fall apart. We were running out of time, and now, we were running out of people too. I dragged Kate to the small medical room, laying her on the examination table. The bullet had gone through her stomach. She needed a hospital, but the nearest one was 200 miles away. It hurts, she whispered, her face pale in the flashlight beam. I know, I said, giving her morphine from our first aid kit. This will help. She grabbed my hand. My camera, get my camera. I hesitated, not wanting to leave her, but she insisted. I ran back to the lab, grabbed her camera, and returned quickly. Jimmy was still in the corner, talking to himself. He didn't even look at me. Kate's hands shook as she checked the camera. It's still working, she said, sounding relieved. Keep taking pictures. Document everything. Kate, we need to worry about you right now. She shook her head weakly. I'm not going to make it, Frank. We both know that. Don't say that. Listen to me, she said, her voice suddenly stronger. This thing, ... The government will want it. As a weapon, they'll try to capture it, control it. If we survive to tell anyone, that's why we need proof, evidence of what it can do. She pressed the camera into my hands. Promise me. I nodded. Taking the camera, I promise. Kate helped me set up a small tape recorder near her bed. If it comes for me, ... I want to record it, what it does, how it feeds. The thought made me sick, but I understood. We were scientists, even now. What about Jimmy? She asked. He's lost it, I said simply. The fear got to him. I checked on him after Kate fell asleep from the morphine. He was gone from the corner where I'd left him. I searched the station, calling his name softly, not wanting to attract the creature. I found him in the generator room, working with tools, connecting wires to our nuclear battery. His eyes were red from crying, but his hands moved with purpose. Jimmy, he looked up. We have to kill it, he said flatly. I figured it out. It feeds on radiation, so we give it all the radiation it could ever want, all at once. You're talking about a nuclear explosion. A small one, he corrected. Contained, mostly. It'll kill us too. He laughed, an empty sound. We're already dead, Doc. This way, at least we take it with us. I couldn't argue with his logic. We were trapped, cut off, with a wounded teammate and a creature that seemed unstoppable. How long? I asked. An hour, maybe less. He went back to his work. You should say goodbye to Kate. I returned to the medical room, my mind racing. Kate was awake again, her breathing shallow. She'd been taking photos of her own gunshot wound, documenting her symptoms. Ever the scientist. Jimmy's rigging the nuclear battery to explode. I told her. She nodded slowly. Will it work? Will it kill the thing? I don't know, I admitted. It feeds on radiation. It might just make it stronger. Then we need a backup plan. We talked it through, our voices getting weaker as the minutes ticked by. The station had grown completely silent. No more scratching. No more screams. The creature was waiting for something. I set up the radio for one last transmission, using the emergency frequency that would broadcast to all military channels. If we couldn't stop this thing, at least we could warn others. Kate suddenly grabbed my arm, her eyes wide. It's here, she whispered. I couldn't see anything, but I felt it, a cold presence, watching us from the shadows. The radiation meter beside Kate's bed was climbing rapidly. Take pictures, she reminded me. I raised the camera with shaking hands. The flash lit up the room for a split second and there it was, standing in the doorway, taller than before, its skin glowing with an unnatural light, its eyes fixed on Kate. I took picture after picture as it moved toward her, each flash freezing its approach. It moved strangely, like it was flickering in and out of our reality. Kate turned on the tape recorder. This is Catherine Delacroix' final documentation of the Devil's Canyon entity, she said, her voice surprisingly calm. The creature appears to select the weakest prey first. It's approaching me now. I wanted to run, to pull her away, but my body wouldn't move. A feeling of complete terror washed over me, paralyzing my muscles. It's releasing fear pheromones, Kate narrated, somehow fighting through it, creating a paralysis effect. My heart rate is elevated, breathing difficult. The creature reached her bed, looming over her. It made no sound now, just stared down with those intelligent eyes. It's beautiful, Kate whispered, surprising me. In a terrible way. Perfect evolution. The creature reached out one long clawed hand and placed it on her chest, right over her heart. Kate gasped, her back arching. Cold, she said into the recorder, draining sensation, like it's pulling energy directly from my cells. I fought against the paralysis, managing to press the camera button again. The flash seemed to irritate the creature. It turned toward me, hissing. That's when we heard Jimmy's voice over the station intercom. 30 seconds to detonation, he announced. May God forgive me. The creature's head snapped up at the sound. It seemed to understand the words. It knows, I realized. It understands what he's saying. The creature moved with blinding speed, disappearing from the room, going for Jimmy. Frank, Kate called weakly. The radio to warning. I stumbled to the radio, fighting through the lingering effects of the fear. My fingers found the broadcast button. "This is Dr. Franklin Morse at Desert Research Station 12, I said quickly. "We've encountered an unknown entity following atomic testing. It feeds on radiation and fear. Conventional weapons useless. It's intelligent and evolving rapidly." I heard a scream from the direction of the generator room. "Jimmy, the entity is loose," I continued. "If you're receiving this, destroy this station. Maximum force necessary. It cannot be allowed to escape." Another scream, cut short. The station lights flickered. 20 seconds to detonation, Jimmy's recorded voice announced over the intercom. I returned to Kate's side. Her skin had gone grey where the creature touched her, like Maria's had. "Did you get good pictures?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "Yes," I promised, holding her hand. "The best." 10 seconds, came Jimmy's voice. "It's coming back," Kate whispered, looking past me. I turned and saw it in the doorway again, bigger than before, glowing brighter. Jimmy's blood dripped from its claws. 5 seconds. The creature tilted its head, considering us. Then it did something I never expected. It smiled. 1. The world turned white. Heat and pressure hit me like a physical wall. The camera in my hand melted. Kate's fingers slipped from mine. I expected death, but instead, I saw the creature standing in the center of the explosion, absorbing it, growing, changing. The radiation that should have destroyed it was making it stronger, just as we'd feared. As the walls collapsed around us, I saw it rise up through the ceiling, into the night sky, glowing like a small sun. The last thing I remember thinking was, we didn't stop it. We set it free. Final scene. The Desert Research Station remains silent under the Nevada sun. The cave entrance has collapsed, burying everything inside. Only a small metal antenna still sticks out from the rubble, automatically broadcasting weather data on a loop. 200 miles away, in a secure military facility, a radio operator replays Dr. Morse's final transmission for a room full of grim-faced officers. "Sir," one of them asks, "what do we do?" The general studies the radiation maps spread across the table, showing heightened levels across the desert. "Moving, hunting, schedule more tests," he says finally. "Bigger ones. We need to track it, sir." The officer questions, confused. "If it feeds on radiation and fear," the general explains, "imagine what it could do to our enemies. Project Devil's Canyon is, now, our highest priority." Outside, the sun sets over the Nevada desert, and somewhere in the gathering darkness, something screams. My name is Ted Garrison. 3 years ago, I left my life as an insurance salesman in Minneapolis to buy this old fishing lodge on Mirror Lake. Some people call it running away. I call it starting over. But the truth is, no matter how far north I drove, the memories followed me here. The first time I saw Mirror Lake, I understood why it got its name. The water was so still, so perfectly clear, it looked like a sheet of glass reflecting the pine trees and the big, open sky. I remember thinking it was beautiful. Now, I'm not so sure. "Ted, we got a problem with the generator again." Lenny's voice boomed across the dock where I was tying up the rowboat. Lenny Kowalski is my business partner. He's the fishing guide, handyman, and the only person who didn't ask questions when I showed up here with nothing but a suitcase and nightmares. "I'll take a look after lunch," I called back, squinting against the afternoon sun. It was unusually hot for May in northern Minnesota. The lake seemed to trap the heat, making the air heavy and still. As I walked up the gravel path to the main lodge, I noticed a blue pickup truck I didn't recognize parked next to our battered Jeep. We weren't expecting guests until the weekend. Inside, I found Lenny talking to 2 women. The younger one wore khaki pants and a University of Minnesota t-shirt. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail. The older woman was clearly Ojibwe, with dark eyes that seemed to look right through me. "There he is," Lenny said. "Ted, this is Dr. Patricia Wainwright from the university. She's here about the fish situation. And this is Diana Strongbeer. She brings our supplies from town." "Call me Patty," the younger woman said, extending her hand. "I'm a marine biologist. The DNR asked me to check out the fish die-off you reported." Her handshake was firm, professional. I noticed how her eyes darted around the room, taking everything in like a scientist would. "Nice to meet you," I said, "though I wish it was under better circumstances. We've never seen anything like it. Thousands of dead fish washing up on shore." Diana Strongbeer hadn't moved from her spot by the window. She was staring out at the lake with an expression I couldn't read. My grandmother warned people about this lake, she said quietly, not turning around. The old ones knew to leave it alone. An uncomfortable silence filled the room. Lenny shifted his weight, the floorboards creaking beneath him. Well, Patty said brightly, breaking the tension, I've brought some equipment to test the water. It's probably an algae bloom or a pH imbalance. Nothing we can't figure out. I nodded, but something about Diana's words had sent a chill down my spine, despite the unusual heat. You're welcome to stay here while you work, I offered. We've got plenty of empty cabins this time of year. That would be great, thanks, Patty replied. I'll need a few days at least. The samples I've seen already are ... unusual. Diana finally turned from the window. I'll be back tomorrow with your supply order. You should all be careful around the water, especially at night. Her eyes lingered on me a moment too long before she headed for the door. After she left, Lenny laughed nervously. Don't mind Diana. The locals have all kinds of stories about this lake. What kind of stories? Patty asked. Lenny shrugged. You know, the usual stuff. Monster in the deep, spirits of the dead. Diana's people believe there's some kind of underwater panther that judges souls. Misha Pechu, Patty said, surprising. Us both. It's a common figure in Ojibwe legends. I did some reading before I came. That night, I couldn't sleep. The lake was unusually still, not even a ripple disturbing its surface. From my bedroom window, I could see the full moon reflected perfectly in the water. It looked like a hole in reality, a doorway to somewhere else. As I watched, the reflection seemed to shift, though the moon above remained unchanged. For just a second, I thought I saw faces in the water. 3 faces I knew better than my own. My wife, my twin daughters, their eyes open and staring. I jerked away from the window, heart pounding. Just a trick of the light, I told myself. Just my guilt playing tricks. But deep down, I knew the lake was watching me. And somehow, it knew what I had done. The next morning, Patty was already on the dock when I brought out coffee. She had set up a small lab on the picnic table. Test tubes, a microscope, and little machines that beeped and whirred. Find anything interesting? I asked, handing her a steaming mug. She frowned at a water sample held up to the sunlight. To be honest, I've never seen readings like these. The water chemistry is all wrong. Wrong how? Well, for starters, the temperature doesn't make sense. I took readings from 10 spots around the lake yesterday. Areas just a few feet apart were different by almost 50 degrees. She pointed to her notebook filled with numbers. That's not natural. I sipped my coffee to hide my unease. Could be underground springs or something. Maybe, she said, not sounding convinced. But that doesn't explain the dead fish. Look at this. She showed me a plastic container with a small perch floating inside. Its scales were dull and its eyes cloudy. This fish died of old age, she said. So this is a 3-year-old perch that shows cellular breakdown consistent with a fish 3 times its age. It's like something in the water sped up time. For it, a chill ran down my spine despite the warm morning. That's impossible. I know. She closed her notebook. I'm going to take more samples from the deeper parts today. Would you mind taking me out in the boat? Before I could answer, we heard the crunch of tires on gravel. Diana's blue pickup had returned with our supplies. As we unloaded boxes from her truck, Diana kept glancing at the lake. More fish died in the night, she said finally. On the north shore, thousands of them. Patty immediately asked for directions, and Diana offered to show her the spot. I decided to join them, leaving Lenny to finish unloading. The north shore was a disaster. Dead fish covered the beach like a silver carpet, their bodies twisted in strange ways. The smell was awful. Patty walked carefully among them, taking samples and photos. I noticed she avoided touching the water. My grandmother told me this lake has no bottom, Diana said quietly as we stood watching Patty work. The Ojibwe believe it connects to the spirit world. I tried to smile. Every lake has a bottom, do they? Diana's dark eyes fixed on me. 3 years ago, the university tried to map this lake with sonar. Their equipment failed when they hit the thermal layer at 400 feet. Something down there bounces the signals back. I didn't know what to say to that. I'd never taken my boat to the center of the lake. Something about the deep water made me nervous. The dead don't stay dead in Mirror Lake, Diana continued. They wait beneath the surface for those who wronged them. My heart skipped a beat. That's just a story, is it? She pointed to where Patty was crouched at the water's edge. Ask your scientist friend why no one can explain this lake. Ask her what's killing the fish. Just then, Patty called us over. She had a Geiger counter in her hand, its needle jumping wildly. There's radiation coming from the water, she said, her face pale. Not enough to be immediately dangerous, but definitely not normal. Where's it coming from? I asked. I don't know. Maybe uranium deposits under the lake. But that wouldn't explain the other readings I'm getting. Diana was watching us both. The building of this lodge disturbed things that should have been left alone. The old caves with the pictures on the walls. Pictures? Patty asked. Cave. Paintings. Very old. They show the Mishapesu and the gateway it guards. On our way back to the lodge, Patty was quiet, scribbling in her notebook. I kept thinking about what Diana had said about the dead waiting beneath the surface. That night, I woke suddenly from a nightmare. In my dream, I had been underwater, my lungs burning for air, and I'd seen my wife and daughters floating before me, their hair moving like seaweed, their eyes open and accusing. I got up to splash water on my face. As I reached for the tap, I noticed my pajama bottoms were soaking wet. So was the floor around my bed. Lake water. I could smell it. My heart pounding. I grabbed a flashlight and checked the front door. It was locked from the inside, just as I'd left it. How had I gotten wet? Had I sleepwalked to the lake? The thought terrified me. From the next cabin, I heard a cry. Lenny's voice, shouting in his sleep. Then silence. I was about to go check on him when I heard something else. A soft voice, calling my name from the direction of the lake. Ted ... Come to us. Ted ... It was my wife's voice. A voice I hadn't heard in 3 years, except in my nightmares. I found myself walking toward the water before I even realized I had moved. The moon made a bright path across the lake's surface, leading out to the deepest part. And there, just beyond the dock, I saw 3 heads bobbing in the water. My family, waiting for me. We forgive you, Daddy, one of my daughters called. Come swim with us. I was waist deep in the water before a hand grabbed my arm from behind. Patty's voice cut through my trance. Ted, what are you doing? It's the middle of the night. I blinked, suddenly aware of the cold water around my legs. The lake was empty. No one was there. I thought I saw ... I couldn't finish the sentence. Patty led me back to shore, concern written on her face. You're freezing. Let's get you inside. As we walked back to the cabins, I glanced over my shoulder at the lake. For just a second, I thought I saw something move beneath the surface. Something large, with eyes that glowed like copper in the moonlight. Something that knew my name and the weight of guilt I carried. The next day, Lenny wasn't himself. I found him sitting on the dock at dawn, staring at the water. He had dark circles under his eyes and kept rubbing his left forearm. You okay? I asked, sitting beside him. He jumped like I'd scared him. Fine, just didn't sleep well. Nightmares. His eyes met mine. How'd you know? I shrugged. Had some bad dreams myself. We sat in silence for a while. The lake was calm, innocent looking in the morning light. It was hard to believe what had happened the night before. Saw them again, Lenny said finally, his voice barely a whisper. My family, the ones I lost in the camps. I knew a little about Lenny's past. He'd survived Auschwitz as a boy, the only one in his family to make it out alive. He rarely talked. About it? In your dream? I asked. He shook his head. In the lake, they were calling to me from the water. His hand moved to his forearm again, rubbing at something. When I looked closer, I saw he'd scratched numbers into his skin with what looked like a fishing knife. Lenny, what did you do? I grabbed his arm to look at the marks. They want me to join them, he said, pulling away. I should have died with them back then. Why did I live when they all died? A chill ran through me. It was too similar to what I'd experienced, the voices from the water, the pull toward the lake. It's not real, I said, trying to convince myself as much as him. The lake is playing tricks on us. The fog reminds me of the smoke, Lenny said, not listening to me, from the crematorium. Sometimes I wake up and smell it. As if on cue, I noticed a thin mist forming over the water, even though the morning was clear and warm. Let's go back to the lodge, I said, helping him up. Patty will want to tell us what she found yesterday. Inside, Patty had turned the dining table into a makeshift lab. Papers covered with numbers and graphs were spread out everywhere. The radiation levels are coming from a specific spot in the lake, she said without looking up when we entered. About 400 feet down. Right, where the sonar can't penetrate. What's causing it? I asked. I don't know yet, but there's something else. She showed us a slide under her microscope. The water samples contain organisms I can't identify. They're not bacteria or algae or any known microorganism, are they? Dangerous? Lenny asked, still rubbing his arm. They seem to accelerate cellular breakdown, Patty said. That's what's killing the fish. But why it's happening now, suddenly, I can't explain. The front door opened, and Diana walked in without knocking. She took one look at Lenny's scratched arm, and her face darkened. It started then, she said. The lake is calling to you. What do you mean? Patty asked. Diana set a bundle of dried plants on the table, sage and tobacco, for protection. She turned to me and Lenny. The Mishapishu judges those with guilt in their hearts. It finds the darkness you try to hide and uses it against you. That's just superstition, Patty said, but she didn't sound convinced. Is it? Diana pointed to Lenny's arm. Ask him what he sees in the water. Ask him who calls his name when the fog comes. Lenny looked away, his face pale. And you, Diana, turned to me. What do you see, Ted Garrison? What pulls you into the lake at night? My mouth went dry. How did you know about that? The lodge owner before you had the same look in his eyes. He drowned himself 3 months after the voices started. So did the man before him. What exactly is this, ... Mishapishu, Patty asked, pronouncing the name carefully. The underwater panther, Diana said. Guardian of the deep waters, judge of the guilty. She looked at each of us. It reads your thoughts, finds your deepest shame, and uses it to draw you in. That's impossible, Patty said. The lake is 3,200 acres of normal water, Diana continued, except for the center, where the old caves are. That part isn't part of our world anymore. My grandmother said the lodge disturbed a doorway when they built here. That night, I couldn't bring myself to sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the car crash that killed my family, the headlights in the rain, the sound of breaking glass, the silence afterward. It had been my fault. I'd had too many drinks at the office party. I'd insisted I was fine to drive. My wife had argued with me, but I wouldn't listen. I must have fallen asleep eventually, because suddenly I was standing on the shore of the lake. The water in front of me had turned to glass, and in its surface, I could see the crash happening again and again. My wife's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Why did you kill us, Ted? I tried to back away, but couldn't move. It was an accident, I whispered. Was it? The voice changed, becoming something deeper, older. Or did you want to be free of us? No, I loved them. The glass surface of the lake shattered, and something rose from the depths. I caught a glimpse of scales, of copper eyes, of a head like a massive lynx. I woke up screaming, tangled in my sheets. But when I put my hand to my face, it came away wet, not with sweat, with lake water. From outside, I heard splashing. I ran to the window and saw Lenny walking into the lake, fully dressed. He was talking to someone I couldn't see. I'm coming, he called. Wait for me, Sarah. Papa is coming. I rushed outside and into the water after him. He was already chest deep, moving steadily toward the center of the lake. Lenny, I grabbed his shirt and pulled. There's no one there. He fought me, surprisingly strong for his age. I can see them. They're waiting for me. It took all my strength to drag him back to shore. As we collapsed on the beach, gasping for breath, I looked back at the lake. For just a second, the water formed a face, massive and ancient, with eyes that seemed to look right into my soul. Then it was gone, leaving only ripples in the moonlight. But I knew it had seen us, and it wasn't finished with us yet. Morning came with heavy rain. I hadn't slept after pulling Lenny from the lake. He was in his cabin now, door locked, refusing to come out. Patty found me on the porch, watching the raindrops hit the water. Each one made a perfect circle that spread outward, like the lake was sending messages in a language I couldn't read. You look terrible, she said, handing me a cup of coffee. Rough night. She sat beside me. I heard shouting. Was that you? I nodded, not sure how much to tell her. Would she think I was crazy if I told her about the visions? About the face? In the water. Something's happening to us, I said finally. To me and Lenny. We're seeing things, hearing voices from the lake. To my surprise, Patty didn't laugh or look at me like I was losing my mind. Instead, she opened her notebook. I've been running tests on the water all night, she said. The samples from the center of the lake show impossible readings. There are elements there that don't exist in nature. What does that mean? I don't know. But there's something else. She lowered her voice. I set up monitoring equipment. On the dock yesterday, the lake gives off electromagnetic pulses like a heartbeat. They matched the pattern of human brainwaves during REM sleep. A chill ran through me. You're saying the lake is ... dreaming. I'm saying something in that lake is producing energy patterns that can interfere with human brain activity. It could explain the hallucinations, the sleepwalking. But why us? Why me and Lenny? Patty looked uncomfortable. Diana mentioned guilt. Is there something you feel guilty about, Ted? The question hit me like a punch. I hadn't told anyone here about the accident, about what I'd done. My family died because of me, I said, the words coming out before I could stop them. I was driving drunk. The car hit a tree. They all died instantly. I walked away without a scratch. Paddy didn't say anything for a long moment. And Lenny, survivor's guilt, I think. He lost his entire family in the Holocaust. She nodded slowly. So both of you carry trauma related to surviving when others didn't. You think that's what it's targeting? I don't know what it is, she said. But if the legends are true, if there is something in that lake that can read minds or emotions, then strong feelings of guilt would be easy to detect. The rain stopped suddenly, like someone had turned off a faucet. The silence felt heavy, waiting. I need to get to the center of the lake, Patty said. My equipment might be able to detect whatever's down there. It's not safe, I said. Nothing about this lake is safe, she replied. But I'm a scientist. I need to understand what's happening. I knew I couldn't talk her out of it, and part of me wanted answers to I'll take you in the boat, I said. But we go armed. Later that afternoon, we loaded Patty's equipment into my small fishing boat. Diana watched us from the dock, her face grim. The center of the lake is where the doorway is, she warned. Be careful what you invite in. The lake was unusually calm as we motored toward the center, like glass under a gray sky. No fish jumped, no birds flew overhead. Even the sound of our engine seemed muffled, as if the air itself was thicker here. Stop here, Patty said, when we reached the middle. She set up a small sonar device and lowered it into the water on a cable. This will give us a better image than the standard equipment, she explained, watching the screen of her laptop. It uses a different frequency that might penetrate the thermal layer. I kept my eyes on the water, half expecting to see faces. Looking up at us, the lake felt alive around us, aware of our presence. That's odd, Patty muttered, tapping at her keyboard. The sonar is showing structures down there. They look artificial. What kind of structures? Like buildings or ruins? But they'd have to be thousands of years old. She looked up at me, her face pale. And there's something moving down there, something big. As if in response, the boat rocked suddenly. The water around us began to churn, though there was no wind. We need to go, I said, starting the engine. Now. But the engine sputtered and died. The boat rocked again, harder this time. What's happening? Patty grabbed the side of the boat to steady herself. The water beside us bulged upward, as if something massive was rising to the surface. Then, just as suddenly, it subsided. The lake went still again. In the silence that followed, we heard Lenny's voice, calling from the shore. I see you, he shouted, waving his arms. I'm coming to join you. To my horror, I saw him pushing our second boat into the water. We have to stop him, I said, grabbing the oars. He'll drown himself. I rowed as hard as I could, but the boat barely moved. It was like rowing through mud. Patty tried calling Lenny's name, but he either couldn't hear us or wasn't listening. He was halfway to the center of the lake when his boat suddenly stopped. From where we sat, we could see him talking to someone, gesturing wildly. But there was no one else in his boat. Then, without warning, he stood up and dove into the water. No, I screamed, still fighting with the oars. Lenny. He surfaced once, his face lit with a terrible joy. They're here, he called to us. My family, they're waiting for me. Then he went under again. This time, he didn't come back up. Our boat suddenly lurched forward, as if whatever had been holding us back had let go. I rowed to where Lenny had disappeared, but there was no sign of him. Just smooth, dark water that revealed nothing of what lay beneath. Back at the dock, Diana was waiting for us. She didn't seem surprised when we told her what had happened. The lake has taken him, she said simply. His guilt was too strong. He wanted to join them. We have to call the police, Patty insisted. Get a search team out here. Diana shook her head. They won't find him, not until the lake decides to give him back. That night, as I lay in bed listening to the rain start again, I heard my wife's voice from outside my window. "Why did you let us die, Ted? Why did you kill us?" I put the pillow over my head, but the voice only got louder. "The lake knows what you did. It sees your guilt." I got up and looked outside. The rain had stopped again, but the ground between my cabin and the shore was soaking wet, and in the mud were footprints. Small footprints, like those of little girls. My daughters. The footprints led to the lake and disappeared into the water, and I knew, with cold certainty, that I would follow them soon, just like Lenny had, because the lake had found my guilt, and it was hungry for more. We didn't find Lenny's body the next day, or the day after that. The lake kept its secrets. Patty wanted to call the police, but the phone lines were down. My cell phone showed no signal, and when we tried to drive to town, the Jeep wouldn't start. We were trapped. "This isn't natural," Patty said as we stood in the rain, looking at the Jeep's dead engine. "None of this is natural." I didn't argue. I'd given up believing in coincidences. Diana arrived that afternoon with more sage and tobacco. She lit small bundles of it around the lodge, the smoke curling up into the damp air. "It won't stop what's happening," she told us, "but it might slow it down. We need to get help," Patty insisted. Diana shook her head. "No one can help now. The lake has chosen. It won't stop until it gets what it wants." "And what's that?" I asked, though I was afraid I already knew. "A sacrifice," Diana said. "A willing one. Someone whose guilt is strong enough to satisfy it." That night, the dreams were worse. I saw my wife and daughters drowning, their faces pressed against a wall of ice, their mouths open in silent screams. I saw Lenny floating among the ruins of an underwater city, his eyes open but unseeing, and I saw something else moving through the dark water, something ancient and patient. I woke to find myself standing at the end of the dock, the water lapping at my toes. I didn't remember walking there. Behind me, I heard Diana's voice. "It's getting stronger. Soon you won't be able to resist." I turned to find her watching me from the shore. "What is it? What's in the lake?" "The Mishapessu is older than my people," she said. "It was here when the first humans came to these lands. It guards the doorway between worlds." "Doorway to what?" "To a place where emotions become real, where guilt takes physical form." She stepped closer. "My grandmother was the tribe's medicine woman. She taught me about the lake, about its hunger. How do we stop it?" Diana was quiet for a long moment. "We can't, but I can try to save you." The next morning I found Patty in the boathouse, loading her equipment into a boat. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Going back to the center of the lake." Her face was pale but determined. "My readings yesterday showed something impossible. The thing down there. It's not just alive. It's intelligent. You can't go out there. It's not safe. Nothing is safe anymore. Ted," she looked up at me, "did you know the fish die-off happens every 20 years? I found records going back to the 1890s, and each time, someone from the lodge drowns." My blood ran cold. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying whatever's in that lake has a pattern, a cycle, and we're part of it now." I helped her load the last of her equipment, knowing I couldn't stop her. Part of me hoped she would find answers, something that would make sense of all this. "Be careful," I said. She gave me a tired smile. "I think we're past the point where being careful matters." I watched her boat move toward the center of the lake, growing smaller and smaller until it was just a dot on the water. Then I went to find Diana. She was in the lodge, creating some kind of circle on the floor with colored sand. "What is that?" I asked. "A barrier," she said, without looking up. "Between our world and what lives in the lake. Will it work?" She finally met my eyes. "No, but I have to try." Outside, the sky had grown dark, though it was only noon. Storm clouds gathered over the lake, spinning slowly like a whirlpool in the sky. "I need to know," I said, "what happened to the people who owned the lodge before me. The ones who drowned." Diana continued her work with the sand. "They carried guilt, like you. The lake found it and used it against them. And Lenny, his guilt was older, deeper. The lake took him quickly." I thought about my own guilt, the weight I'd carried for 3 years, the accident that had destroyed my family, the fact that I had survived when they hadn't. "Can the lake be stopped?" I asked. Diana stood up, her work complete, only by giving it what it wants. Before I could ask what she meant, we heard Patty screaming from the lake. I ran outside to see her boat rushing toward shore, the motor at full throttle. "It's coming," she shouted as the boat hit the dock. "It's coming up." The center of the lake was bubbling, as if boiling from below. The storm clouds spun faster, and a strange light glowed beneath the water. "Get inside," Diana ordered, pushing us toward the lodge. Inside the circle, we barely made it through the door when the rain started, not falling from above, but rising from the ground, defying gravity. Water poured upward, gathering into a massive column that moved toward the lodge. Inside, Diana completed the sand circle around us. Patty was babbling about what she'd seen, a massive shape rising from the depths, a city of stone beneath the water, a doorway that opened into darkness. "It showed me things," she said, her eyes wide with fear. "It put thoughts in my head, images. It knows us, Ted. It knows everything about us." The building began to shake. Outside, the column of water had reached the porch. It was taking shape, forming a head, limbs, a body that was both cat and serpent. "The Mishapeshu," Diana whispered. "It's manifesting fully." The windows shattered, sending glass flying across the room. Water poured in, stopping at the edge of Diana's sand circle like an invisible wall held it back. "The circle won't hold it for long," Diana said. "It's too strong now." The water rose around us, pressing against the invisible barrier. And in the water, I saw faces: Lenny, my wife, my daughters, all watching with empty eyes. "What does it want?" Patty asked, her voice shaking. "Balance," Diana said, "a willing sacrifice to keep the doorway closed for another 20 years. She looked at me, and I understood. The lake wanted me, my guilt, my life. But Diana stepped forward, breaking the circle. "No," I tried to grab her, but she pushed me away. "My grandmother was supposed to be the one," she said. 20 years ago, she refused, and others died instead. Now it's my turn to make it right." Water rushed in as the barrier collapsed. It swirled around Diana, lifting her off the floor. She didn't fight it. "Diana," Patty screamed, but Diana's face was calm. "The lake judges the guilty," she said, her voice somehow cutting through the roar of the water. "But I am innocent. That's why this won't work." As we watched in horror, water filled her mouth, her lungs. Though she was still breathing, she was drowning on dry land. "No one is innocent," came a voice from the water, deep, ancient, speaking directly into our minds. "All are judged." Diana's body went limp, suspended in the swirling water. Then, slowly, the water receded, taking her body with it. Back to the lake. The storm stopped as suddenly as it had begun. The lake went flat and calm, as if nothing had happened. But I knew the truth. Diana's sacrifice hadn't been enough. She was right. The lake wanted someone truly guilty. It wanted me. As night fell, Patty and I sat in the ruined lodge, trying to make sense of what had happened. Her scientific equipment was destroyed, her data lost. "None of this is possible," she kept saying. "None of it makes sense." But we both knew it was real. The lake had taken Diana, just as it had taken Lenny, and it wasn't finished. That night, as I lay awake listening to the silence, I knew what I had to do. The lake would never let us leave, not until it had what it wanted. Outside my window, I saw my daughters standing on the shore, their small hands beckoning me to join them. This time, I wouldn't fight it. This time, I would follow. I slipped out of the lodge while Patty was sleeping. The night was perfectly still, no wind, no animal sounds, not even the usual lap of waves against the shore. It was as if the whole world was holding its breath, waiting. The moon made a bright path across the water, leading straight to the center of the lake. My family stood at the edge of the dock, my wife in her blue summer dress, my twin daughters in their matching red swimsuits, just as they had been on the day of the accident. "We've been waiting for you, Ted," my wife said, her voice both familiar and strange. "It's time to come home." Part of me knew they weren't real. They couldn't be. But another part, the part heavy with 3 years of guilt and grief, didn't care. "I'm sorry," I said, stepping onto the dock. "It was my fault. All of it, we know," one of my daughters said, her smile too wide, too knowing for a child. "The lake knows everything." I walked to the end of the dock, where they stood. Up close, I could see they weren't quite right. Their eyes reflected the moonlight, like a cat's. Their skin was too pale, almost translucent. "What happens now?" I asked. "You join us," my wife said, reaching for my hand. Her fingers were ice cold and slightly webbed. "You face judgment." I took a deep breath. "I'm ready." Before I could move, I heard Patty's voice behind me. "Ted, don't." I turned to see her running down the path from the lodge, a flashlight bobbing in her hand. "It's not real," she shouted. "Whatever you're seeing, it's not real." My family's faces changed, twisting with anger. The water around the dock began to churn. "You have to go," my wife hissed, her voice no longer human now. "Before she stops you." I hesitated, caught between them. "Ted, listen to me," Patty said. Approaching slowly, I figured it out. The lake doesn't want revenge. It's not punishing anyone. "Then what does it want?" I asked, still half focused on my family, who were growing more transparent by the second. "It feeds on guilt," Patty said. "The emotions of humans. That's why it targets people like you and Lenny, people carrying trauma. Your guilt is ... food for it." "That's not true," my wife said, but her voice was fading. "We need you, Ted. We forgive you." Those last 3 words hit me like a punch to the gut. Forgiveness. The one thing I'd wanted most for 3 years. The one thing I'd never been able to give myself. "The lake knows that," Patty said, reading my expression. "It knows exactly what you want to hear. That's how it lures you in." The images of my family were barely visible now, like ghosts in the moonlight. "Don't listen to her," my wife pleaded. "We're waiting for you beneath the water. We can be together again." I closed my eyes, trying to think clearly. "If what you're saying is true," I said to Patty, "then Diana and Lenny are ... gone," she said gently, consumed by it. "And you'll be next if you follow these ... illusions." When I opened my eyes, my family was gone. In their place stood something else, a massive shape, half cat and half serpent, its eyes glowing like copper coins. "The Mishapishu, you cannot escape judgment," it said, the words forming directly in my mind. "Your guilt belongs to me." The dock beneath my feet began to crack, the water rising up through the boards. "Run!" Patty screamed, grabbing my arm, but I stood my ground. Something had clicked into place, a realization. "You don't want justice," I said to the creature. "You want my guilt. But what if I don't give it to you?" The water surged higher, wrapping around my legs like icy hands. "Your guilt is mine," the creature insisted. "It has been since you first came to my lake, carrying the weight of your dead." "No," I said, surprising myself with how calm I felt. "My guilt is mine. My grief is mine. You can't have it anymore." For the first time, I felt the creature's confusion. It hadn't expected resistance. "The accident was my fault," I continued. "I'll carry that forever. But punishing myself won't bring them back, and neither will letting you feed on my pain." The water tightened around my legs, trying to pull me in, but something was changing. The more I accepted my responsibility, without drowning in guilt, the less power it seemed to have. "Ted," Patty called, still trying to reach me. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." The creature in the water roared, a sound like thunder that shook the dock. Images flashed before my eyes, the car crash, my family's bodies, the funeral I barely remembered attending, all the guilt and grief I'd carried for 3 years. "I see what you're doing," I said, "but it won't work anymore. I'm responsible for what happened, but I don't belong to you, and neither do they." As I spoke their names, my wife's, my daughter's, I saw them again, standing behind the creature, but this time they looked different, real, sad but peaceful. "It's okay, Ted," my wife said softly. "Let us go. Let yourself go. I love you," I told them. "I always will. But this isn't the way." The creature lunged at me, jaws open to reveal rows of needle-like teeth, but as it did, my family's images moved between us, blocking its path. For a moment, they glowed with a light that had nothing to do with the lake's illusions. Then they were gone, truly gone, and the creature shrieked. In rage, the water pulled harder, dragging me toward the edge of the dock. I fought to keep my balance, but I was losing. Patty had reached the dock now. She threw something toward me, a bundle of dried plants, Diana's sage and tobacco. I caught it just as the boards gave way beneath me. As I fell toward the water, I crushed the bundle in my hand, releasing its scent into the air. The effect was instant. The water recoiled as if burned, releasing me. I scrambled back onto what remained of the dock, soaking wet but alive. The creature reared up, its massive body silhouetted against the moon, but it seemed smaller somehow, less certain. "You have no power over me," I told it. "Not anymore." With a final scream of fury, it sank beneath the surface. The water went still, the night quiet once more. Patty helped me back to shore, both of us shaking from what had just happened. How did you know? I asked her. About the guilt being food for it. Diana's last words, she said, about being innocent. And the readings I took, the lake was absorbing energy from us, specifically emotional energy tied to trauma. The electromagnetic pulses matched brain patterns associated with guilt and grief. So it wasn't about judgment at all. No, just hunger. Ancient, patient hunger. We found the phone lines working the next morning. The jeep started on the first try. Whatever had been keeping us at the lodge was gone, or at least dormant. The police found Lenny's body that afternoon, washed up on the North Shore. Diana's was never recovered. The official report listed them both as accidental drownings. I sold the lodge a month later. The new owners didn't ask why the price was so low, and I didn't tell them about the lake or what lived in it. Perhaps I should have, but part of me hoped that, without my guilt to feed on, the creature would remain sleeping in the depths. Patty published her findings on the fish die-off, attributing it to unusual chemical compounds in the lake. Her more extraordinary discoveries never made it into the report. Some things, we agreed, were better left unwritten. I still dream of the lake sometimes, of my family waiting beneath the surface, of copper eyes watching from the depths. But the dreams no longer pull me toward water, toward drowning. Instead, I see my wife and daughters as they were in life, laughing, loving, alive in my memory rather than trapped in my guilt. The lake wanted to consume my guilt, to use it to open a doorway between worlds. In the end, the only way to close that door was to forgive myself, not for the lake's sake, but for my own. I don't know if the Mishipeshu is real or just a story. The lake tells to feed its hunger. I don't know if it will find another guilty soul to feed on when the 20 years are up. I only know that my guilt no longer belongs to it. It belongs to me, and slowly, day by day, I'm learning to let it go. But sometimes, when I'm near water, any water, not just Mirror Lake, I find myself watching the surface carefully, looking for ripples where there should be none, for copper eyes shining in the depths. And I wonder if the lake is watching me too, patient and hungry, waiting for me to fall back into guilt, waiting for me to become food for it once more. Because some things never die, they just wait beneath the surface, ready to rise again when we least expect it. My name is Marcus Donovan. I'm 42 years old, and I've been cutting trees in the forests of Maine for almost 20 years now. But this winter at Pine Ridge, this winter was different. Our camp sat deep in the northern woods, about 40 miles from the nearest town, just a cluster of wooden buildings surrounded by endless pine trees. In winter, when the snow piles up, that logging road becomes nothing but a white ribbon that disappears completely during storms. There were 12 of us at the camp that season. I was the head logger, in charge of making sure we met our quotas and nobody lost any limbs to the saws. The company radio only worked twice a week for check-ins, and our food deliveries came once a month. We locked everything up tight after some supplies went missing last year. My nephew Tommy had joined us that fall, just 19 and eager to prove himself. The kid was always hungry, always snacking on something. I didn't know then that his body wasn't processing sugar right. Undiagnosed diabetes, the doctors would later call it, that constant hunger of his, ... I think about it a lot now. Ellie Whitmore ran our kitchen and patched us up when we got hurt. Quiet woman, kept to herself mostly. I caught her reading medical textbooks sometimes when she thought nobody was looking. Later, I found out she'd run from a husband who used his fists more than his words. She knew more about medicine than she let on. Then there was old Raymond Hawthorne, 58 years old, with 3 fingers missing from his left hand. Lost them to frostbite back in '43, he claimed. Ray was obsessed with the local legends, especially the Wendigo stories. He'd get drunk and tell us how the native Passamaquoddy people called this area the place where hunger lives. Said they abandoned it back in the 1800s for good reason. 3 men gone missing in these woods in the last 10 years, Ray would say, his eyes glassy from whiskey. Company blames bears or accidents, but I know better. I'd roll my eyes when he started in on those stories. I'd seen real horrors in Korea, watched good men die in ways you can't imagine. During one brutal winter retreat, well, let's just say hunger changes people. I'd drink to forget those memories. The things we did to survive. None of us paid much attention to Ray's warnings. The trees were tall, the pay was good, and we had a job to do. The locals might avoid these woods, but to us, it was just another logging camp. We didn't know then that the old stories were true. that something ancient and hungry was watching us from the shadows between the trees, something that could smell our secrets, our fears, our shame, and it was getting colder every day. It was Joey who found the claw marks first. We were marking trees about a mile north of camp when he called me over, his voice shaking. "Boss, you need to see this." The scratches ran up the trunk of a massive pine, higher than any bear could reach, deep gouges in the bark, like something had dug its claws in and pulled down hard. I ran my fingers over the marks. They were fresh. "What kind of animal does that?" Joey whispered. "Bear," I said, but we both knew that was a lie. The marks were 12 feet up the tree. No bear stands that tall. That night, I couldn't sleep. The wind howled outside our bunkhouse, and the walls seemed thinner than ever. I could hear Tommy tossing in his bunk across the room. 3 days later, we found the moose, or what was left of it. A bull moose, massive thing, torn open from neck to belly. Its insides were gone, eaten, but the meat was left untouched. The strangest part was how the bones were arranged around it, like someone had placed them in a pattern on purpose. The men wouldn't go near it. Even I felt cold looking at it, and not from the winter air. That's when the dreams started. First it was just me, dreams of raw meat, blood on my hands, the taste of something warm and copper in my mouth. I'd wake up sweating, my heart pounding against my ribs. But then others started mentioning similar dreams at breakfast. Nervous laughs, avoiding each other's eyes. "Dreamed I was eating a raw steak last night," one of the men said. "Woke up and my pillow was in my mouth." Ellie watched us from the kitchen counter, her eyes narrowed, taking everything in. Tommy started sleepwalking a week after we found the moose. First time, I woke up to find him standing at the foot of my bed, just staring. His eyes were open but empty. "Tommy," I whispered, "go back to bed, kid." He didn't answer, just turned and shuffled away. The second time was worse. Ellie found him in the kitchen at 3 a.m., standing over Jim with a knife in his hand. When we woke him up, Tommy had no memory of how he got there. "I was dreaming about food," was all he said. "I was so hungry." Then the storm hit. A wall of white came down from Canada, dropping temperatures to 20 below. The logging road disappeared under 4 feet of snow. The radio crackled with the news we all feared. We were stuck here until the weather cleared. Could be days, could be weeks. That night, as the wind screamed around our little camp, I looked out the window of my small private cabin. Between the swirling snowflakes, I thought I saw something moving at the edge of the forest, something tall and thin, watching the camp. When I blinked, it was gone, but I could feel it. Something had found us, and it was hungry. The storm lasted 5 days. We were trapped in our camp, the world outside nothing but white, and with each passing day, things got stranger. It started with the food. Ellie had made a big pot of beef, stew, the kind that usually had the men lining up for seconds. But that night, nobody finished their bowls. The meat tasted wrong somehow, rotten. "Sorry, Ellie," Tommy said, pushing his bowl away. "I'm just not hungry." But that was a lie. We were all hungry, just not for stew. I found myself staring at raw bacon in the morning, wanting to eat it just like that, cold and uncooked. The thought disgusted me, but my mouth watered all the same. The dreams got worse too, more real. In mine, I was back in Korea, trapped in the mountains with my unit, the snow, the cold. It was the same, but now I could see their faces as As I'd wake up screaming, memories I'd spent years drinking to forget, suddenly fresh in my mind. Things I'd done to survive that winter retreat, things no man should do. Uncle Marcus. Tommy appeared at my door one night after a particularly bad dream. "Are you okay?" "Fine," I lied. "Go back to bed. I keep having these weird thoughts," he said, his voice small. "Like, I remember things that never happened. Did I ever eat a neighbor's pet when I was little?" My blood went cold. "What? No. Tommy, go back to sleep. It's just the isolation getting to you." But it wasn't just Tommy. Ray cornered me the next day, his eyes wild. "It's here," he whispered, "the Wendigo. It gets in your head first, makes you hungry for things you shouldn't want. Then it makes you remember things that never happened, until you can't tell what's real anymore." I pushed past him. "You're scaring the men with that nonsense." That night, the dinner bell rang. The sound pulled me from a restless sleep, a clear, sharp ringing that echoed through the camp. It was 3 a.m. I grabbed my coat and flashlight and went to investigate. I wasn't the only one. Half the crew stumbled out of the bunkhouse, following the sound to the mess hall. The door was open, snow drifting onto the floor. Inside, the tables were set with plates. On each plate was something dark and wet, something that still steamed in the cold air. "What the hell is this?" one of the men whispered. I moved my flashlight closer. The beam shook in my hand. What I saw didn't make sense. Organs, fresh ones, laid out like a fancy dinner. We backed out of the mess hall. Nobody spoke. When we returned with Ellie 10 minutes later, the plates were clean. No sign anything had been there at all. "You're all overtired," Ellie said, but her voice trembled. "Go back to bed." That same night, Ben got lost walking to the outhouse, a trip he'd made 100 times. The bunkhouse kept stretching. He told us in the morning, his eyes red from lack of sleep. The hallway got longer and longer. I walked for what felt like hours. We found him curled up in the supply shed. The next day, Tommy started speaking in a language none of us recognized. It happened while he was helping Ellie in the kitchen. One minute he was peeling potatoes, the next he was saying words that made no sense, his voice deeper than normal. When Ellie touched his shoulder, he snapped out of it. Didn't remember saying anything strange, but Ray did. His face went white when I described it to him. "Algonquian," he whispered, "an old dialect, the language of the tribes that used to live here." I looked across the camp at my nephew, laughing with some of the younger loggers. "How would Tommy know that?" I asked. Ray's remaining fingers dug into my arm. "He doesn't. It knows it, and it's using him now." Ray died on a Tuesday. We found him in the tool shed, or what was left of him. His throat was torn out, not cut, torn, like something had used bare hands. There was blood everywhere, so much blood it had frozen in dark pools on the wooden floor. Tommy was missing that morning. We found him hours later, wandering in the woods without a coat, no memory of where he'd been. His clothes were clean, too clean, like he'd changed them recently, but his fingernails had blood under them. "I don't remember," he kept saying, rocking back and forth on his bunk. "I don't remember anything after going to bed." I wanted to believe him. God help me. I did. We wrapped Ray's body in a tarp, planning to bury him once the ground thawed enough. To dig, we stored him in the equipment shed, where it was cold enough to preserve him. The next morning, the tarp was open. Ray's body had been skinned, the flesh peeled away from his bones. His organs were arranged in the snow outside the shed, spelling out a single word: hunger. "We need to radio for help," Ellie insisted. "This isn't a wild animal. This is a person doing this." But when we tried the radio, all we got was static. The storm had knocked out our only connection to the outside world. That night, I caught 3 of the men standing round Ray's body. They didn't respond when I called their names. They just stared at the corpse, swaying slightly. One of them had a knife. When I shined my flashlight directly in their faces, they blinked and looked around, confused. "What are we doing here?" Jim asked. But there were tiny bits of flesh under their fingernails too, and one of them was chewing something. The men started to change after that. They stopped talking to each other at meals. Instead, they would communicate with grunts and nods, like animals. They watched Ellie constantly, following her with their eyes as she moved around the camp. "They're hunting me," she whispered to me one night, slipping into my cabin after dark. "I can feel it, the way they look at me, ... It's not human anymore." I'd seen that look before. In Korea, when we were starving, Ellie had been collecting samples, stool samples from the outhouse. She explained, her face flushed with embarrassment but her voice clinical. "There's something in them," she said. "Some kind of parasite I've never seen before. It's in their digestive systems, maybe spreading to their brains. I think it might be controlling them somehow." "That's not possible," I said. "Then explain what's happening," she snapped. "Explain why Tommy, who can barely order food at a diner, he's so shy, suddenly tore a man's throat out with his bare hands." I couldn't. "Whatever it is," she continued, "it's spreading. The infected are changing physically to... Have you noticed? Their fingers are longer. Their eyes. There's something wrong with their eyes." I had noticed. Tommy's hands didn't look right anymore. His fingers seemed stretched, the joints swollen, and his eyes had a filmy look, like a dead fish. That night, I woke to scratching at my door, soft at first, then harder, claws on wood. When I finally got up the courage to open it, there was no one there, just long scratches in the door, and strange footprints in the snow that started at my cabin and led into the dark forest. They weren't human footprints, too long, too narrow, and they were spaced too far apart, like whatever made them had taken 10-foot strides. In the distance, something howled, not a wolf, not anything I'd ever heard before, and from the bunkhouse came an answering call, high and hungry, Tommy's voice. I hid Ellie in my cabin. It wasn't safe for her in the main camp anymore. 6 of the men were showing signs of ... whatever this was. The hunger, the physical changes, the way they moved, jerky one moment, to smooth the next. Tommy was the worst. I watched through my window as my nephew emerged from the bunkhouse at dawn. He didn't walk right anymore. His body seemed too long, his movements all wrong. When he turned his head to look at the forest, it rotated too far, like an owl's. His fingers, God, his fingers, they stretched from his hands like claws now, the skin grey and tight over the bones. He's changing, Ellie whispered beside me. The parasite, or whatever it is, it's changing him physically. That night, the temperature dropped again. 40 below zero, too cold for anything to survive outside. But something was out there. I saw it while getting firewood, standing at the edge of the clearing, half hidden by trees, taller than any man I'd ever seen. 15 feet, at least. Thin, so thin it looked like a skeleton with skin stretched over it. I could see its ribs, its chest. Something pulsed inside, visible through its skin. A heart, maybe, but it looked frozen. Its eyes found mine across the distance. Black, completely black, like holes in its face. It knew I was watching it, and then it stepped backward into a tree. Through a tree, like the solid wood was just air. I dropped the firewood and ran back to the cabin. We're going to die. Here, I told Ellie, my hands shaking as I barred the door. Not if we fight, she said. The thing, the Wendigo, as Ray had called it, had other plans. That night, it showed me things. Not dreams, more real than dreams. I was back in Korea, but this time, I wasn't myself. I was watching through the eyes of my friend Davis as I, the other me, cut pieces from his body while he was still alive. I felt his pain, his horror, his betrayal. You had to do it, Ellie kept saying, holding me down as I screamed. You were all starving. You had no choice. But watching it from Davis's eyes, feeling the knife, hearing my own voice say, just a little more, we need to make it last, ... double quotes. When morning came, I could barely stand. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Outside, the others had gathered around Tommy. His transformation was nearly complete. His body had stretched, bones cracking and reforming. His skin was grey-white, like a corpse. His mouth wasn't right anymore. Too wide, too many teeth. The other infected men knelt around him. Tommy reached out one long clawed hand and touched Jim's forehead. Jim convulsed, his back arching impossibly. When he stood again, his eyes were black, and his fingers had begun to lengthen. It's creating more of them, Ellie said, using Tommy as some kind of ... host body. We watched as, one by one, Tommy touched the remaining men. Each one changed a little, becoming more like him. A pack. I thought of what Ray had said about the Wendigo. It gets in your head first, makes you hunger for things you shouldn't want. We need to kill it, I said. Kill Tommy. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. My own nephew, my sister's boy. It might not be him anymore, Ellie said gently. Whatever Tommy was ... I think he's gone. But I wasn't so sure. Sometimes, when the thing that used to be Tommy turned toward my cabin, I thought I saw something familiar in those black eyes. Something scared, something trapped, something still human. Ellie worked fast, mixing chemicals from her medical supplies. Alcohol, she explained, filling glass bottles. Disinfectant, anything that burns. She tore strips of cloth from her shirt for wicks. Fire, she said. It's the only thing that might work. Cold and fire, opposite of what it is. I had my axe, not much use against something that could walk through trees, but it made me feel better having it in my hands. Outside, the infected men were hunting us now. They moved through the camp, sniffing the air, searching. Tommy, or the thing wearing Tommy's skin, directed them with gestures of his long, clawed hands. They couldn't find us. Ellie had smeared strong-smelling disinfectant around the cabin to mask our scent. We need to get to the mess hall, Ellie said. More supplies there, and it's bigger. We'll have room to fight if we need to. If I almost laughed. There's no if anymore. We waited until dark. The temperature had dropped again, the cold so intense it hurt to breathe. Perfect weather for the Wendigo. I could hear it moving around the camp, its footsteps crunching in the snow. Sometimes it would appear suddenly, stepping out of shadows like it had been hiding in them. Now, Ellie whispered. We slipped out the back window. The snow was up to our knees, making it hard to move quickly. The mess hall was only 50 yards away, but it felt like miles. We were halfway there when a howl split the night. They'd spotted us. Run. I pushed Ellie ahead of me, turning to face what was coming. The infected men came first, moving on all fours like animals, their eyes reflecting the moonlight. Behind them, towering above, came Tommy the Wendigo. His body seemed to flicker in and out of the darkness, like he wasn't fully solid. I swung my axe at the first man who reached me. The blade bit into his shoulder, but he didn't slow down, didn't even seem to feel it. His hands, no longer really hands, clawed at my coat. Marcus. Ellie had reached the mess hall door. She threw one of her makeshift bombs. It exploded in a flash of flames between me and the infected, giving me just enough time to break free and run. We barricaded ourselves inside the mess hall. It wouldn't hold them for long. Ellie and I stood in the center of the room, surrounded by overturned tables we'd pushed against the doors and windows, our breath fogged in the freezing air. When they come in, Ellie said, aim for Tommy. He's the main one. The source. He's my nephew. I said, not anymore. Her voice was gentle but firm. The scratching started then, claws on wood, all around the building, testing, looking for weakness. The windows rattled as something heavy pressed against them, and then a voice, Tommy's voice, but wrong. Deeper, older somehow. Uncle Marcus, it called. I'm so hungry. I closed my eyes, trying to block it out. I know what you did in Korea, the voice continued. I know how good they tasted. How you wanted more. Don't listen, Ellie hissed. It's trying to get in your head. The voice changed, became something ancient and rasping. Give me the woman, it said. Give her to me, and I'll let you live. I'll even give you back your nephew. Liar, I spat. A chuckle, cold as the wind outside. Such certainty. But you've been mine for weeks, Marcus Donovan. Ever since you found the moose. My first gift to you. The scratching stopped. Complete silence fell. Then the window beside us exploded inward as something massive crashed through. Glass and snow sprayed across the room. The thing that had been Tommy stood in the opening, its body bent at an impossible angle to fit. Ellie didn't hesitate. She lit another bomb and threw it directly at Tommy's face. The creature screamed as flames engulfed its head. It thrashed, knocking over tables and chairs. The other infected poured in through the broken window, howling. Run, I shouted to Ellie. Get to the kitchen. But she didn't run. Instead, she stepped toward the burning creature, another bomb in her hand. I saw it happen in slow motion. The Wendigo's arm shot out, impossibly fast, impossibly long. Claws tore through Ellie's coat, her skin, her flesh. She gasped, blood blooming across her chest. Go, she managed to say to me. Then she pressed the unlit bomb against the creature's chest and pulled the Wendigo down on top of her as they fell. I ran. God help me, I ran. The kitchen door slammed behind me. I grabbed a heavy meat cleaver from the rack and wedged it through the handle, buying myself seconds at most. Through the small window in the door, I watched as the Wendigo, as Tommy bent over Ellie's body. The other infected gathered around, making soft, hungry sounds. I couldn't see Ellie anymore, just a circle of hunched backs and reaching hands. The door shuddered as something heavy slammed against it. The cleaver bent but held. Another slam, and the hinges started to pull from the frame. I backed away, looking for a weapon, an escape, anything. My back hit the large industrial stove, cold, like everything else in this forsaken place. The door burst open. Tommy stood there, but it wasn't Tommy anymore. The fire had burned away what was left of his human face, revealing something else beneath, something ancient and hungry. Black eyes in a skull-like face, skin pulled tight over bones. Behind him, the infected men dragged Ellie's body. She was still alive, somehow. Her eyes found mine. Blood covered her chest and stomach, but her hand still gripped something. The unlit bomb. Marcus, she whispered. And then, a miracle. Tommy stopped. His head twitched, like he was fighting with himself. When he spoke, it was Tommy's voice. My nephew's voice. Uncle Marcus, he gasped. Kill me, please. It's still In me, I can feel it. It's eating me from inside. He fell to his knees, his too long body folding like a collapsing tent. The other infected hesitated, confused without their leader. Please, Tommy begged, his voice breaking. I hurt Ray. I hurt Ellie. I can't stop it. It's so hungry. My axe lay on the floor where I'd dropped it. I picked it up, my hands steady now. I'm sorry, Tommy, I said. I know. Tears fell from his black eyes. Do it quick. I raised the axe. The handle felt solid in my grip. Real. I love you, kid, I said. The axe came down. Again and again. I closed my eyes but kept swinging until I couldn't feel arms anymore. When I opened my eyes, Tommy's body lay still. The other infected had backed away, whimpering like lost dogs. I knelt beside Ellie. She was fading fast, her breath coming in short gasps. The lighter, she whispered, pressing something into my hand. A small metal Zippo. Burn it all. Only way. Her eyes closed. I felt for a pulse but found nothing. I took the bomb from her hand and lit it, tossed it onto Tommy's remains. Then I found the camp's emergency fuel tank in the kitchen corner, opened the valve. The smell of gasoline filled the air. The infected watched me, confused. They seemed less dangerous now, lost without the Wendigo controlling them. I struck another match and dropped it. The kitchen exploded into flames. I ran for the back door as fire raced across the floor. The infected screamed behind me. Human. Sounds again. I didn't look back. Outside, the cold hit me like a wall. I ran through the snow, toward the logging road. If I could just reach town, get help. I ran until my lungs burned, until the trees thinned and I saw lights ahead. The town, I'd made it, but something was wrong. The town looked like ... like our camp. The buildings were the same. The snow fell in the same pattern. I turned around. Behind me, the burning mess hall blazed against the night sky. I hadn't moved at all. I was still at the camp. You can never leave, a voice whispered in my head. Tommy's voice. No, something. Older, you've been mine since Korea, since you first tasted human flesh. I fell to my knees in the snow. Looking down, I saw my hands. My fingers were longer than they should be. The nails thickening, darkening, curving into claws. I was hungry, so hungry. In the spring, they found the camp. All the men dead, their bodies torn apart. Evidence of cannibalism, they said. Winter madness. It happens sometimes, when men are isolated too long. They never found me. But sometimes, in the northern forests of Maine, loggers still tell stories. About claw marks too high on trees, about missing men and arranged bones, about a tall, thin figure that watches from between the pines, and about hunger, a hunger that never ends. In the place where hunger lives, I am still waiting, still hungry, and I am not alone. My name is Harrison Mitchell, but nobody calls me that anymore. It's just Harry now. That's all I need out here in the hollow. I came to this place 5 years ago, looking to get away from everything and everyone. Can't say I blame myself. After 27 years on the Detroit police force, the last thing I wanted was more people, especially after what happened with that kid. Just 17 years old. Wrong place, wrong time. My bullet, my mistake. The cabin sits in a small clearing, surrounded by dense forest that stretches as far as the eye can see. Moonwood Hollow, they call it. Not that many people know it exists. There's only one dirt road in, unmarked and overgrown. Just how I like it. My setup is simple, but it works. Solar panels for a bit of electricity, a well for water, and a wood stove that keeps the place warm during those brutal mountain winters. No phone, no mail, nothing to connect me to the outside world except for Ben. He brings me supplies every couple weeks, along with moonshine that burns all the way down and helps me sleep without the nightmares. Old Ruth Ashworth lives about a mile down the hollow. Her family's been here since before the Civil War. Sometimes she brings me cornbread or preserves, tells me stories about the hollow's history. Strange stories, people going missing. Blame it on wild dogs or wolves, she says. But her eyes tell a different story. I've noticed things about this place. The locals never go out during the new moon. They leave meat at the edge of the forest, cuts to, not scraps, like offerings. I asked Ben about it once. He just shook his head and said, some traditions are best not questioned. Harry, tonight, as I sit on my porch watching the sun sink behind the mountains, I can hear them. Howls that don't sound quite like wolves. Too intelligent, almost like They're talking to each other. I take another sip of Ben's moonshine and try not to think about it. I never expected anyone to find me here. Certainly not Evelyn. Not after all this time. But tomorrow, everything will change. I was chopping wood when I heard the car coming up the dirt road. Nobody comes up here by accident. My hand went to the pistol I still keep tucked in my waistband. Habits. The car that pulled up was dusty and beat up, like it had traveled a long way. When the door opened and Evelyn stepped out, I almost dropped my axe. My daughter. 5 years since I'd seen her. She looked tired. Older than her years, Dad, she said. No smile, just a nod. Before I could answer, the back door opened, and a little boy climbed out. He had Evelyn's eyes, my eyes, really. This is Timothy, Evelyn said. Your grandson. Timothy stared at me with wide eyes. You live in the forest, like a mountain. Man, I didn't know what to say. My throat felt tight. The boy looked about 8, with a missing front tooth and skinned knees. He reminded me of someone, the boy in Detroit. The one I couldn't save. We need a place to stay, Evelyn said quietly. Just for a while. Mark, ... He found us again. Mark, her ex-husband, the man who put her in the hospital twice before she finally left him. How long? I asked, my voice rough from disuse. I don't know, until I figure things out. I nodded and picked up Timothy's small suitcase. You can have the back bedroom, it's not much. That first night was quiet and awkward. I made a stew with venison I'd hunted last week. Timothy asked a million questions about the forest, the animals, my guns. Evelyn said little, watching me, with cautious eyes. As the days passed, things got a little easier. Timothy followed me everywhere, wanting to learn how to fish, how to identify animal tracks. Evelyn helped run the cabin, fixing things I'd let go. We talked a little about her life, but never about the past, never about why I left. One evening, I found Timothy at the edge of the forest, throwing pieces of his sandwich into the trees. What are you doing, buddy? I asked. Feeding the dogs, he said, smiling. They're hungry. I scanned the tree line. What dogs? The ones that come at night. They watch the house. He pointed to the dark spaces between the trees. They're my friends now. A chill ran down my spine. There are no dogs out here, Timothy, just wolves, and they're not friends. He shrugged. They look like dogs sometimes, and sometimes they look like people. I grabbed his hand and pulled him back toward the cabin, feeling eyes on my back the whole way. That night, I heard howling closer than ever before, and for the first time in years, I locked my doors. Ben usually comes on Thursdays with supplies. When he showed up on Tuesday instead, I knew something was off. He stood taller somehow. His eyes darted around the cabin, taking everything in like he'd never seen it before. This is Ben, I told Evelyn. He brings me what I need from town. Ben smiled at her, but it didn't reach his eyes. Didn't know Harry had a daughter, or a grandson. We haven't been close, Evelyn said. Ben nodded, still looking around. Got your usual stuff, Harry, though prices went up. I handed him the cash, and our fingers touched. His were ice cold. You okay? I asked. You seem different. Just tired, he said quickly. Bad roads. As he left, I noticed he walked to his truck differently. Ben always had a bad knee from a hunting accident years back. This Ben walked just fine. Later that night, I found him behind the barn. He didn't see me at first. He was crouched over something, his back to me. When I got closer, I saw he was eating something raw, something red. Ben, I called out. He stood up fast and wiped his mouth. In the moonlight, his eyes caught the light and shined like an animal's. Just checking your generator, he said. Thought I heard it making noise. We both knew I didn't have a generator. The next morning, I made an excuse about needing more ammunition and drove to Ben's place. His still house was tucked away in a hollow even more remote than mine. The door was open when I arrived. Ben, I called, hand on my gun. The smell hit me first. Metallic, wet, wrong. What I found inside wasn't Ben anymore. Not really. His body was torn apart, like something had been feeding on him for days. But someone had tried to make it look like an accident with his still equipment. They'd done a poor job. On the floor next to what was left of his hand was his silver watch, the one he always told me stories about. How his grandfather had given it to him, how it saved his life in Vietnam. The watch the man at my cabin wasn't wearing. I drove back slowly, my mind racing. The Ben at my cabin wasn't Ben. But if he wasn't Ben, what was he? When I got home, Evelyn was hanging laundry while Timothy played by the porch. "Where'd you go?" she asked. "Just checking something," I said. "Where's Ben?" "He left hours ago. Said he'd be back Friday with more supplies." That night, I pulled out my old police revolver and loaded it with fresh bullets. I didn't tell Evelyn what I'd found, didn't want to scare her, but as I watched Timothy playing by the window, talking to someone or something outside that I couldn't see, I knew we weren't safe anymore. The howling started just after midnight, closer than ever before, and this time, mixed in with the howls, I could have sworn I heard my name. The next morning I told Evelyn I needed to check on Ruth. Really, I needed answers. Ruth's cabin was smaller than mine, weathered by decades of mountain seasons. Smoke curled from her chimney, even though it was warm out. She was sitting on her porch like she'd been expecting me. Her wrinkled face gave nothing away. "You've seen them, haven't you?" she asked before I could speak. "Seen what?" "Don't play dumb, Harry. Not now." Her voice was sharp. "The ones that took your friend Ben." My stomach dropped. "What do you know about Ben?" Ruth sighed and motioned for me to sit. "They've been here longer than any of us. My great-great-grandmother called them the Shadow Walkers. Those who came later called them dog men." "What are you talking about?" "They look like wolves, but they can walk like men. They can talk like men. They can become anyone they've studied long enough." She leaned forward. "They took your Ben because he knew the way to your place. They wanted to know about you." I thought of the thing pretending to be Ben, the way it moved, the way it looked at Timothy. Why would they care about me? Ruth's eyes were cold. "Not you, the boy. They always want the children first." She told me everything then, how her family had made a deal generations ago, how they'd been feeding the pack for over 100 years. Travelers, hikers, people who wouldn't be missed. "One a month," she said, "during the new moon. That keeps them satisfied, keeps them from taking one of our own." I felt sick. "You've been helping them kill people." "I've been helping my family survive," she snapped. "The pack was here before us. They'll be here after us. You can't fight them, Harry. You can only make arrangements. And now," Ruth looked away, "it's been a hard winter. Game is scarce. They're hungry." She paused. "And they want the boy, Timothy." "Why?" "Children change easier. Their minds are ... flexible." I stood up so fast my chair fell over. "You stay away from my grandson, you hear me?" Ruth just smiled sadly. "It's not up to me anymore. The Alpha has decided." As I turned to leave, she called after me. "The new moon is tomorrow night. Harry, if they don't get what they want, they'll take what they can get." I practically ran back to my cabin. When I burst through the door, Evelyn was at the stove making lunch. Timothy was drawing pictures at the table. "Would need to leave," I said. "Pack whatever you can carry. We're going now." "What? Why?" Evelyn asked. Before I could answer, there was a knock at the door. Ruth stood there, holding a thermos. "Brought you some coffee," she said sweetly. "Thought you might need it after our talk." I wanted to slam the door in her face, but Evelyn had already taken the thermos. "That's so kind," Evelyn said. "Would you like to stay for lunch?" Ruth's eyes met mine over Evelyn's shoulder. "Oh no, dear, I need to get back. Things to prepare for tomorrow night." As she walked away, I knew we didn't have much time. But when Evelyn poured me a cup of that coffee, I didn't have the heart to tell her not to. It was hot and strong, and I drank it without thinking. 20 minutes later, my vision started to blur. My limbs felt heavy. "Dad, are you okay?" Evelyn's voice sounded far away. The last thing I saw before I passed out was Ruth standing at our window, nodding, and behind her, shadows moving at the edge of the forest. I woke up with a pounding headache, my mouth dry as dust. The cabin was dark. How long had I been out? "Evelyn," I called, my voice cracking. "Timothy." No answer. I stumbled to my feet, grabbing the wall for support. The coffee mug lay broken on the floor. Ruth had drugged me. That old witch had actually drugged me. Outside, the sky was turning purple with sunset. I'd been unconscious for hours. My gun was still in its holster, thank God. I checked it, then moved through the cabin, room by room, empty. A cold fear gripped my chest. "Timothy, Evelyn," I shouted, running outside. The yard was quiet, too quiet. No birds, no insects, just the wind in the trees. Then I saw Timothy's red baseball cap lying at the edge of the forest. I ran to it, snatched it up. The dirt around it was scuffed with strange tracks. Not quite dog prints, bigger the toes were wrong, longer. "Timothy," I yelled into the trees. "Grandpa." The voice came from deep in the forest. Timothy's voice, high and scared. I plunged into the trees, following the sound. Keep talking, buddy. I'm coming. Grandpa, help me. I'm scared. I ran faster, branches whipping my face. The voice seemed to move, always just ahead, always just out of reach. Timothy, Grandpa, help. The voice came from my left now. How did he get over there? Grandpa, I'm here. Now, from the right. Grandpa. Behind me. Grandpa. Above me. I stopped, breathing hard. This wasn't right. How could he be everywhere? Harry. This time it was Evelyn's voice, soft and pleading. Dad, help us. I turned in a circle, gun raised. Where are you? Over here, Dad. Her voice moved too, circling me. Then I heard a third voice, Ben's voice. They got us. Harry. There. Not human. A chill ran through me as I remembered what Ruth had said. They can talk like men. Grandpa, please. Timothy's voice broke into sobs. The dogs are hurting me. Every instinct told me to run toward that voice, to save my grandson. But something was wrong. These voices were coming from too many places at once. Grandpa, help me. Timothy's voice called from one direction. Grandpa, I'm scared. The same voice, the exact same words, from another direction. They were tricking me, using my grandson's voice to lure me deeper into the woods. I backed away slowly, my gun sweeping the darkening forest. I'm not falling for it, I said loudly. Whatever you are, I'm not falling for it. A low growl answered me, then another, and another. The forest around me filled with growling. You're smarter than most, said a new voice, deep and gravelly, but it won't save them. I raised my gun toward the voice. Show yourself. The figure stepped from behind a tree. In the fading light, it looked almost human. Almost, but its proportions were wrong. Its face was stretched, halfway between a man's and a dog's. Its eyes glowed yellow in the shadows. The boy belongs to us now, it said, its mouth moving wrongly around the words. The woman too. Where are they? I demanded, my gun aimed at its chest. It smiled, showing teeth that were far too sharp. The boy is with the alpha. The woman is ... being prepared. If you've hurt them, you'll what? It growled, taking a step closer. Shoot me. Go ahead. I fired. The bullet hit it square in the chest, but it only grunted and looked down at the wound. As I watched, the hole closed, healing instantly. Your weapons mean nothing to us, it said. We've hunted these mountains since before your kind built cities. We will hunt here long after you're gone. More shapes moved in the trees around me, more yellow eyes watching. What do you want? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The Alpha will tell you that, it said. At midnight, come to the clearing with the stone circle. Come alone. It turned to leave, then looked back over its shoulder. Oh, and Harry, you might hear your grandson calling. He really is calling for you. Sometimes it melted back into the shadows, leaving me alone with the growing darkness and a terrible choice. As I made my way back to the cabin, Timothy's voice called out again and again from the forest. Each time I stopped, my heart breaking. Was it really him this time, or just another trick? And each time, I forced myself to keep walking. I needed a plan. I needed weapons that would actually work. Back at the cabin, I found the clock stopped at midnight. Something had broken it. A message, a deadline. I tore through the cavern looking for anything that might help. My police revolver was useless. What else worked against monsters? In movies, it was always silver or fire. I didn't have silver bullets, but I did have the old silver flask my partner gave me when I retired. I melted it down on the stove and dipped my hunting knife in it. Not much, but better than nothing. I grabbed my shotgun too, and filled my pockets with shells. For fire, I made Molotov cocktails using Ben's moonshine and some rags. 5 of them, not enough, but all I had time for. The stone circle was about a mile into the forest, an old place. Ben once told me it was there before the first settlers came. Native American maybe, or older. As I hiked through the dark woods, I kept my flashlight off. Better they didn't see me coming. The moon was just a sliver in the sky, barely giving any light. New moon tomorrow. Ruth's words echoed in my head. The new moon is tomorrow night. If they don't get what they want, they'll take what they can get. Timothy's voice called out occasionally, but I steeled myself against it. Trick or real, I couldn't help him by getting lost in the woods. The stone circle appeared ahead. a clearing where ancient stones stood in a rough circle. Moonlight touched them, making them glow faintly. In the center stood a figure. It looked like a man at first, tall, wearing what seemed to be an old leather coat. But as I got closer, I saw it wasn't a coat at all. It was fur, growing from his skin. His face was long, somewhere between human and wolf. His eyes reflected the moonlight like mirrors. "Harrison Mitchell," he said, his voice deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "The protector who couldn't protect. Where are my daughter and grandson?" I demanded, keeping my silver-coated knife hidden, safe, for now. He walked around me, studying me like I was an interesting bug. "You're not from here. You don't understand our ways. I understand you're monsters who eat people." He laughed, a sound like bark breaking. "Monsters, we were here first, little man, before your kind built cities, before you cut down forests and poisoned rivers. We are the first hunters of these mountains. What do you want with my family? We need new blood." He stopped in front of me. "Our pack grows old. We need young ones to teach our ways. The boy is perfect, young enough to change, to learn. And Evelyn, the woman," he shrugged, "breeding stock. Perhaps or food. It depends on her usefulness." Rage boiled inside me, but I kept my face calm. "How many are you?" "7 now. We were more once. Your kind hunted us with silver and fire long ago." He leaned closer. "But we're growing again, taking back what was ours, by replacing people, like you did with Ben." He smiled, showing teeth as long as my fingers. "We learn by consuming. We become by replacing, one by one, farm by farm, hollow by hollow. Soon, these mountains will be ours again. And Ruth, what's her part in this?" "The Ashworth woman." He laughed again. "Her family has served us for generations. They give us tribute. We spare their bloodline. A simple arrangement, until now." His eyes narrowed. "The old woman shared too much, broke our trust. She will feed the pack tonight." I heard a rustle behind me and turned to see Ruth being dragged into the clearing by 2 dogmen. They looked more wolf than human, walking on 2 legs but covered in fur, with long snouts and pointed ears. "Harry," Ruth gasped. "I'm sorry. They promised they'd only take the boy. Not Evelyn, not you. You betrayed us, old woman." The alpha growled. "Now you will serve the pack one last time." Before I could move, he lunged forward, his jaw expanding impossibly wide. He clamped down on Ruth's head with a sickening crunch. She didn't even have time to scream. I stumbled back, fighting the urge to vomit. The alpha lifted his bloody face from Ruth's body, his eyes glowing brighter now. "Her memories are mine now," he said. "I know every corner of your cabin, every weapon you have hidden, every way you might try to escape." He tapped his forehead. "It's all here now." The other dogmen dragged Ruth's body away. I could hear them, feeding in the darkness. "Midnight tomorrow," the alpha said, wiping blood from his chin. "Bring the silver knife you think I don't know about. Bring your useless guns. Come to the old Ashworth place. We'll be waiting with what's left of your family." He turned to leave, then looked back. "Or run. Leave the hollow. Leave them behind. You might even survive." Then he was gone, melting into the shadows like he was made of. Then I stood alone in the stone circle, the weight of what I'd just seen pressing down on me. They knew everything I had planned. They knew every move I might make. But they didn't know how far a man would go to save his family. They didn't know what I'd done in Detroit, what I was capable of when pushed too far. As I walked back to my cabin to prepare, I heard Timothy's voice once more from the forest. "Grandpa, please, I'm so cold." This time, I knew it was really him. I didn't go back to the cabin. They'd expect that. Instead, I headed straight for the old Cold War bunker I'd found when I first moved here. It was hidden in a hillside about a quarter mile from my place, covered in vines and rust. Inside, I had emergency supplies, weapons, and things I'd never told anyone about, not even Ben. I pulled out the dusty footlocker from under a cot. Inside was everything I'd brought from Detroit. My old tactical gear, my backup weapon, and the thing I swore I'd never use again, a small metal case with 6 silver bullets. My partner had given them to me as a joke after we watched a werewolf movie, just in case, he'd said, laughing. I never thought I'd need them. I loaded my revolver with the silver bullets and tucked extra shells for the shotgun into my belt. I strapped on a hunting knife and filled a backpack with road flares, gasoline, and matches. By dawn, I was ready, but I didn't move yet. The would be watching my cabin, waiting for me to return. I needed to be smarter than that. I remembered what the old-timers in Detroit used to say: don't fight on their turf, make them fight on yours. Ruth's place would be their turf. I needed to change that. I spent the day moving through the forest, setting traps, tripwires connected to shotgun shells, pits covered with branches, lined with sharpened stakes, gasoline, areas that I could light up with a single match. As the sun began to set, I made my way to Ruth's cabin. I moved quiet as a ghost, staying downwind. If these things could smell like animals, I didn't want them catching my scent. Ruth's place looked normal from a distance. Smoke from the chimney, lights in the windows, but as I got closer, I could see dark shapes moving inside, not human shapes. I circled around to the back of the property, where Ruth's old root cellar was dug into a hillside. The heavy wooden door was padlocked, but I could hear something inside, crying Timothy. I whispered through the door. The crying stopped. Grandpa. His voice was hoarse, like he'd been screaming. Are you hurt, buddy? I asked, working on the padlock with my knife. My arm hurts. The dogs bit me. My blood ran cold. Ruth had said, children change easier. Is your mom with you? Silence. Then, they took her to the house. She was fighting them. They got mad. The padlock finally broke. I eased the door open, gun ready. Timothy sat huddled in the corner, dirty and scared. His right arm was wrapped in a bloody shirt. Timothy, I said softly, I need you to be brave. Can you do that? He nodded, eyes wide. I'm going to get your mom. But first, I need to know if you single quotes re ... still you. He looked confused. What do you mean? The bite, I said, nodding to his arm. Do you feel different? He shook his head. It just hurts. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But I remembered Ben, how perfectly they'd copied him. Almost perfectly. Timothy, what did you get for your birthday last year? He blinked. A blue bike. But the chain broke after 2 days, and you got mad at the store guy. Relief flooded through me. The dogmen couldn't know that. They hadn't been watching us that long. Come on, I said, helping him up. We need to move fast. I led him to a hollow tree I'd found earlier and placed my backpack inside. Stay here, don't make a sound. If I'm not back in 1 hour, there's a map in the backpack. It'll show you how to get to the highway, but no buts. Your job is to stay alive, understand? He nodded, tears in his eyes. I checked my watch. 9:30, 2.5 hours until midnight, until the new moon was highest in the sky. Ruth's cabin was lit up now, shadows moving in the windows. I counted at least 4 different shapes. That meant others were outside, patrolling. As if to confirm my thought, I heard a twig snap to my left. I froze, pressing against a tree trunk. A figure moved through the forest about 20 yards away. It looked like a large wolf walking on its hind legs. Its head swiveled back and forth, sniffing the air. I waited until it passed, then moved toward the first trap I'd set. I struck a match and lit a road flare, then threw it as far as I could. To the east, it landed with a hiss, casting red light through the trees. Almost immediately, howls erupted from around the cabin. 2 shapes loped toward the flare. They took the exact path I'd hoped for. The explosion when they hit the tripwire wasn't large, but in the quiet forest, it sounded like a cannon. Yelps of pain followed. Chaos broke loose. Dogmen poured from the cabin, howling and snarling. They ran toward their injured packmate straight into my second trap. The gasoline-soaked ground ignited when one of them triggered the flare-ride. Hidden, fire spread in a circle, trapping 3 of them in a ring of flames. I used the confusion to move closer to the cabin. Through the window, I could see Evelyn tied to a chair. Her face was bruised, but she was alive, moving, and standing next to her was me, or something wearing my face. It had my exact features, my clothes, even the scar on my chin from a bar fight years ago, but its eyes were wrong, yellow, reflecting the firelight like an animal's. As I watched, it leaned down to Evelyn and spoke with my voice. I'll get you out of here, sweetheart. Trust me. Evelyn spat in its face. You're not my father. It wiped the spit away, then slapped her hard enough to rock the chair. You'll learn respect when you join the pack. That was all I needed to see. I raised my revolver and fired through the window. The silver bullet hit the thing wearing my face square in the chest. It looked down in surprise as a smoking hole appeared, spreading black veins across its skin. It opened its mouth to howl, but no sound came out. Instead, It collapsed, its body shriveling like a burning photograph. I crashed through the door, gun ready. Evelyn screamed until she recognized me. "Dad, behind you." I spun as another dogman lunged through the doorway. This one wasn't bothering with a human disguise. It was in full monster form, 7 feet of muscle and fur and teeth. I fired again. Another silver bullet. Another smoking wound, but this one didn't go down so easily. It staggered but kept coming. I emptied my revolver into it, the last 4 silver bullets tearing through its chest. Finally, it collapsed at my feet, black blood pooling on Ruth's faded carpet. "Where are the others?" I asked, cutting Evelyn free. There was one more inside. It looked like Timothy. Her voice broke. "Is he? He's safe. I found him." Relief flooded her face. Then her eyes widened, looking past me. "Dad." I turned as the Alpha stepped through the door. The Alpha filled the doorway, bigger than the others. He wasn't trying to look human anymore. His snout was long, teeth gleaming in the firelight. His eyes burned yellow with hate. "The silver shooter," he growled. "You've cost me half my pack." I raised my revolver, forgetting it was empty. The Alpha laughed, a horrible sound. "No more magic bullets, Harrison Mitchell." He stepped closer. "We've watched you for weeks, counted your shots, learned your ways." Behind me, Evelyn pressed against the wall. I put myself between her and the monster. "You can still join us," the Alpha said. "The boy is already changing. His blood sings with our song now. He'll be one of us by morning." "You're lying," I said, but doubt crept into my mind. The bite on Timothy's arm, ... The woman, too. He sniffed the air, looking at Evelyn. She'd make a strong hunter. "Go to hell," Evelyn spat. The Alpha moved faster than I thought possible. One moment he was in the doorway. The next, he had his claws around my throat, lifting me off the ground. "You'll watch them change," he snarled. "Then you'll beg to join them, or you'll beg to die. I haven't decided which yet." My vision started to blur as his grip tightened. Behind him, through the door, I could see the forest burning. My traps had worked too well. The fire was spreading. Good. With my last bit of strength, I pulled the silver-coated hunting knife from my belt and plunged it into the Alpha's side. He howled, dropping me. Black blood oozed around the knife handle. He clawed at it, trying to pull it out, but the silver burned his paw when he touched it. "Run," I shouted to Evelyn. "Get to the hollow tree by the east trail. Timothy's there." She hesitated for just a second, then bolted past the wounded Alpha. He swiped at her but missed. I wasn't so lucky. As I tried to follow, his claws caught my leg, tearing through denim and flesh. I fell hard, pain shooting up my thigh. The Alpha loomed over me, black blood dripping from his side. "You'll burn with me, Harrison Mitchell." The fire had reached the cabin now. Smoke poured through the open door. Wood crackled as flames licked up the walls. I crawled backward, leaving a trail of blood on Ruth's floor. The Alpha followed, limping but still deadly. The knife in his side seemed to be slowing him down, but not enough. My back hit the wall, nowhere left to go. The Alpha leaned down, his hot breath washing over my face. "Your daughter won't make it to the boy in time. My last pack member is already there. The one that wears your grandson's face." Fear gripped my heart. There was another one, waiting for Evelyn. The Alpha's jaws opened wide, ready to finish me. But as he lunged, a burning beam crashed down from the ceiling, pinning him to the floor. He howled in agony as flames caught his fur. I scrambled away, pulling myself toward the door. The smoke was thick now, making it hard to breathe, hard to see. Outside, the night air hit my lungs like ice water. I gulped it down, then forced myself to my feet, despite the pain in my leg. I had to get to Timothy and Evelyn. The forest was an inferno around Ruth's cabin. Trees exploded as the sap inside them boiled. The heat pushed me back, forcing me to take a longer route through the woods. My leg left a trail of blood on the leaves. I'd never make it at this rate, but I had to try. After what felt like hours, I reached the hollow tree where I'd left Timothy. It was empty, the backpack gone. "Timothy," I shouted. "Evelyn." A scream answered Evelyn's voice, coming from deeper in the forest. I stumbled toward it, using a branch as a crutch. I found them in a small clearing. Evelyn was on her knees, clutching her arm. Blood seeped between her fingers. Timothy stood a few feet away, watching her with a strange expression. "Timothy," I called. He turned to me, and in the moonlight, I saw his eyes. They glowed yellow. He bit me, Evelyn whispered. My own son bit me. Timothy Orr, the thing that used to be Timothy's mild, showing teeth that were too sharp for a human mouth. Hello, Grandpa. My heart broke. We were too late. The Alpha said you'd come. The boy said, his voice changing, deepening. He said, you'd tried to stop the change. Timothy, fight it. I begged. You can fight this. He shook his head. Why would I want to? I'm stronger now. I can run faster. I can hear everything, smell everything. He looked at Evelyn. Mum will understand soon. The bite is already working. Evelyn sobbed, still holding her bleeding arm. I could see the wound clearly, now a human-sized bite mark, but the teeth had been anything but human. You're not my grandson, I said, steel entering my voice. What have you done with him? The thing wearing Timothy's face laughed. I am him. I've always been him. The Alpha bit me days ago, when I first fed the dogs at the edge of the forest. I've been changing slowly, becoming better. My mind raced. Days ago. That meant this wasn't a replacement. This was really Timothy, transformed by the Alpha's bite. The Alpha is dead. I lied. I killed him. The pack is gone. Doubt flickered across the boy's face. You're lying. The cabin is burning with him. Inside, the others are dead too. The boy tilted his head, listening to the forest. The roar of the fire was growing louder, the smell of smoke thicker. Then I'll start a new pack, he said, beginning with my mother. He took a step toward Evelyn, who tried to crawl away. Timothy, please, she begged. This isn't you. It is me, he growled. The real me. The me I was always meant to be. I had no weapons left, no silver, no fire, nothing but myself. Take me instead, I said. Let her go. Take me. The boy paused. I'm stronger, older, better for the pack. He seemed to consider this, his inhuman eyes studying me. The Alpha said you were too old to set in your ways. The Alpha was afraid of me, I said. He knew I'd fight him for control of the pack. That's why he wanted me dead. Timothy, no, the thing that had been Timothy took a step toward me. You would join us willingly, to save them. Yes, it came closer, sniffing the air around. Me, you're bleeding, weak. I'm still stronger than a child. Its eyes narrowed, kneeled. I lowered myself to my knees, wincing at the pain in my leg. The creature came closer, its face inches from mine. It still looked mostly like Timothy, but wrong somehow. The proportions of his face shifting, becoming longer. His fingernails had darkened, curving into claws. You will submit to me, it said. I am pack now. I nodded, lowering my eyes in fake submission. I submit. It leaned in, mouth opening wider than a human mouth should. I could see the teeth lengthening, sharpening. As it lunged for my throat, I made my move. With every ounce of strength left in my body, I grabbed it by the shoulders and fell backward, pulling it with me. We rolled across the forest floor until I pinned it beneath me. Evelyn, run. I shouted. Dad, no. It's still Timothy. It's not him anymore. I struggled to hold the creature down as it thrashed and snapped at my face. Its strength was incredible for something with a child's body. Go now. I heard her footsteps retreating as I fought to keep the monster pinned. It snarled and clawed at me, tearing my jacket, my skin. I'll find her. It growled. I'll find both of you. No, I said. You won't. With one hand, I pulled the last road flare from my pocket and struck it against the ground. It ignited with a hiss, bathing us in red light. The creature's eyes widened in fear. It renewed its struggle, nearly breaking free. I pressed the flare against its chest. I'm sorry, Timothy. It screamed a sound that started as a boy's scream and ended as something inhuman. The smell of burning flesh filled the air. When it was over, I sat back, numb. What lay before me wasn't Timothy anymore. It wasn't human at all. The disguise had burned away, revealing the monster beneath. I limped, away from that clearing, following Evelyn's trail. I found her at the edge of the dirt road, collapsed and crying Timothy. She asked when she saw me. I shook my head. That wasn't Timothy anymore. The bite, she whispered, looking at her own arm. We'll get you help, I promised, though I had no idea what kind of help existed for something like this. We made it to my truck somehow. The forest behind us was an ocean of flames now, consuming everything. The cabin, the hollow, the pack. As we drove away from Moonwood Hollow, Evelyn stared out the window, silent tears running down her face. I kept checking the rearview mirror, half expecting to see yellow eyes following us. "Where are we going?" she finally asked. "Somewhere they can't find us," I said. "If any of them survived, and if they did," I gripped the steering wheel tighter, "then we'll be ready next time." In the side mirror, I caught a glimpse of something moving along the tree line, keeping pace with the truck. Something that ran on all fours, then rose to 2 legs. Something with eyes that caught the moonlight and glowed yellow in the darkness. I pressed the gas pedal to the floor, and we sped away from Moonwood Hollow. But as the miles stretched between us and that cursed place, I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't really getting away at all. The Hollow was in us now, in Evelyn's bite, in my nightmares, in the emptiness where Timothy should be. And somewhere behind us, howls rose into the night sky, calling, hunting, waiting.